You're not frustrated?
I guess, yeah. It's good. Then I don't have to find it. Put a little arrow on it, I'll know where I am. Okay, let's call ourselves to order. I apologize for us being a little late. There was a lot going on. I wish we were having donuts and coffee, but we were not. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. There is a upcoming July 24th meeting on Governor Baker climate change adaptation proposal, which is 2 p.m. It's in Salisbury, and it's the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and it's related to the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. So West Newbury is going to be participating in. I know Rick is going. So I don't know if other people can. How many people can attend that? Do you know anything about that? Yeah.
I communicated with what's the woman's name again? Meg Colclough today, and she said that anyone who is interested, in the issues of climate change adaptation or the MVP program is welcome to attend, but ask that they RSVP. We have an email address if anybody's interested. Archie has, or Angus can supply that to you too. An email address for the.
It's Meg Colclough, COLCLOUGH at mass.gov. There for people in the area of Sullivan's Court, there is a pre-construction meeting tomorrow morning, actually at 9 a.m. The road is going to be repaved, I believe. Is that right, Angus? I believe that's the thing. And so any abutters in the area that have concerns or would like to talk to the DPW and the contractor, they will be at the intersection of Whetstone and Sullivan's Court tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
And it's my understanding that notice was mailed around to the neighborhood, which was a condition that was set during the planning board's approval of the project.
Yeah.
So you're starting to pave from Whetstone to Sullivan's Court, heading west. Where do you end?
At the start of the turnaround, so like 50 feet before the turnaround. But he's paving, we're stopping there. He wants to pave his area.
As long as that's not a public road, I just want to make sure that it has not slipped through in any way of that.
That's correct.
And him paving it, he will keep the exact same footprint? I've actually wasn't sure of that. Is there a way, Mr. Chairman, or Angus, is there a way? That circle's been going to contention since it was built, because our old DPW director actually asked us to support his recommendation, and that wasn't it. And he said, what's going to happen to that is exactly what's happening to it. It was too narrow. It's all caved in on the sides. You can't actually really use it. I just want to make sure we don't sneak a wider road up there when we're, not we, but someone doesn't sneak a wider road up there when, you know what I mean? It was just paved. Why would we pave it over? Maybe it was the first coat. I don't know. But I would just like to. Okay. I would like just to make sure we keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Yeah, the width of the road was a big concern. Yeah.
Gary
Yeah.
wanted a T, not a. Yeah, not a. Thank you.
The Tape Art Festival is continuing. I hope that people have gotten a chance to see some of the great productions that in all three towns, the library in Groveland, the Food Mart here. So it's still gonna be going on Saturday, there will be a tape art. What's going to happen Saturday? Give me a little more information, Jim.
The community's gonna get together, it's gonna be art trying to make a mural all together.
Okay.
Tape art leading us on the back of the middle school.
Oh, okay. So that's going to be Saturday, the 27th at 1 p.m. Okay.
All
So-
our,
And Canoza, mentioned that Groveland Library, the Food Mart, and Canoza Vending is where it's at in Merrimack.
Right. Information is available about the senior work-off program for real estate taxes. Let me see where is my paper on that? Oh, that's it. Okay, it's on the back. Okay. So this is, happens every year, senior citizens to get relief with their property taxes. Eligibility, and these are just the simplified part of it. It's can be a little more complicated than that, but have to be 60 years or older, a resident of West Newbury, and a homeowner, and there's only one senior tax work-off program per household. It allows you to get a rebate up to $1,500 a year, which could be applied to your West Newbury property tax. It's exempt from state income taxes, but because it is considered income by the federal government, it can be subject to federal income taxes and also Social Security, Medicare withholding. You have to apply through the Council on Aging, and it depends on whether your skills match the department that sort of needs your help. So it's certainly, a lot of people have participated in it. It helps the town, and it's a great thing for people to lower their tax burden.
is there
Question?
any income eligibility issue? Can anybody apply, or do you have to be a certain income level or below?
This one I don't think is income related, no.
Just the requirements are 60 years old, resident of West Newbury, must be a homeowner or residing in the property
here
for
it
which you lease the premises, so it can't be on the property that you're renting, and it's only one per household.
Thank you.
Do you want this copy, Jim?
I probably
Okay,
have it.
okay.
You do. The sneaky stuff is we've got to conserve, so it's on the county back.
Yeah, that's why I get confused.
Getting me
Okay.
confused, yeah.
This is a notice from the assessor's office. The assessor's office is in the process of inspecting personal property, open building permits, and cyclical recollection of property data for any home that hasn't been inspected within the last 10 years. So the data collector from the office will be visiting properties to measure exterior and conduct an interior inspection if applicable. So data collectors will check in with the police department. They will have photo IDs. So if someone's coming to your house, make sure that that they do. And you could certainly cross-check with the police to see if that is one of the registered people. The bandstand concert series on Thursday evenings is still continuing through August 29th, 6:30 p.m. This one is the Marquee Group, and it doesn't say what kind of a band this particular one is, but that they are who is performing this coming July 25th. And on a sad note, we just note the passing of Woody Cammett. He did on Friday. He did a lot for the town of West Newbury and other towns in the area. Just this past spring, Woody had been selected as the Amesbury Lions Club Humanitarian of the Year. And you all know that for example, in our town, the Little League field is named after Woody. So in addition to his charitable work with the town and everything he's contributed to the town of West Newbury, he did a lot for the town of Amesbury as this commemoration from the Amesbury Lions Club is proof of. So that's a sad note, and we wish our condolences to his family.
Does it say how old he was?
72.
Here we are. Okay, the first item is discussion of the forthcoming construction on the water tank at Breaks Hill, Hilltop Circle, and we want to just perhaps reconfigure the traffic flow at that during that construction. So, Wayne, do you want to come up and just help us with that?
I can try, so you know what we left it at.
Yeah, you turn the time on.
You can hold that button, no problem. Yeah, Lieutenant Reynolds, time to shut that off.
Here, why don't you take this, and I'll take that, so you can start.
So the plan, a new 12-inch water main, the work on that, which is unrelated to the tank work, has already started in that neighborhood. The site work for the tank and to build the new road up from Hilltop Circle to the new water tank, so that work can start. We'll be starting shortly in August. So we want to make sure that the traffic is not, and the workers are not too much of an impediment to the neighborhood. And last year we had settled on doing a counterclockwise route for the construction vehicles around the town, around the circle. And I guess that now the thinking is maybe we want to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, so now we have a contractor on board, and he looked at it, actually got awarded the bid, and this is what we said with the sketch here, is what he prefers to get in, because he's had limitations on swinging in on the right, coming from the other way, he's swinging from the left, and so this was his interest. Either way, I drove out there, I looked at it, either way works for me, but I'm not driving the tractor trailer, trying to back it in and trying to move the equipment. So this is what they do for a living, so I respect his opinion on that. Can they get it in the other way? Probably. It'll be more work and worry about deep damage, I think, on the property, on the other side of the property, but this is where this is what they recommend.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So you're saying that they're recommending they go up, take a right, obviously, they go around Hilltop Circle, then they'll proceed by the entrance to Break Hill Water Tank, and then back their vehicle in?
I think they're driving in, so I think.
Okay, you said something about backing in.
They're planning to do.
So they're just gonna drive into the location, and then they're gonna turn around or whatever?
If they can. I mean, obviously, if you would use tractor trailer, no matter which direction you're going to do this, they might have to back in on certain.
After the gravel road goes in, all the way up to the top of the hill, will they be able to turn around up there?
The contractor told us they'll have room to make that. They should have room to make, to turn trucks around and come back up. I'd see backing up as a last resort.
That would be a long
That'd be a
backup.
long backup. to do,
Yeah.
so,
I'm just thinking that backing up poses a whole host of issues, coming down and getting into the neighborhood and stuff like
Children
that.
and
Yeah.
everything else.
I prefer they would not want
And there isn't gonna be a detail up there anytime they're up there? I would assume there's not gonna be a detail?
There was none specified in the contracts unless, they're not doing any work on the public right of ways, they're not mandating unless we have,
Mhm.
which means we'd be paying the cost of that.
Mm-hmm.
Deliveries are gonna come heavy some days, one day and 6 another day. I mean, it's very sporadic what you're gonna have. So I'd be cautious. about
So are these, for example, I don't know at all, like when we get to having pieces of the tower, are these gonna be like, overlong, pieces, or are they gonna be a routine 18-wheeler, or are they gonna be an extra wide or extra long, or I don't know?
I'm not sure on the scale, the size, what scales they're using, what kind of trucks they're using. The larger the more it's gonna be
Difficult to make the turn,
get
yeah.
inside there. I mean, fortunately, the contractor knows the site now, he knows it's going up a dirt road. So they get a monster tractor trailer with 12 pieces of steel on it, might be a challenge for them to get it up there. But it's tough to control material that might be coming from Wisconsin. By the time it gets here, it's the first time the contractor sees it on the truck. I mean, so it's, in reality, you could say, don't bring big trucks. And it can't be big. When the guy pulls up from Wisconsin in his truck, pulls up and gets out and says, here it is.
Well, they are gonna have a holding area, so maybe there could be like, they could be informed before they get up there. This is what you're dealing with.
Yep.
Yeah.
Archie, I might suggest, I don't know, Bob Janes, if you want to join Wayne, because I think Bob's been more directly involved. Mike Goutet couldn't be here because of a family issue
Commitment.
out of state, but I don't know if any of the questions that have been asked to Wayne, if you have knowledge that
Do
he,
you have the photos that Mark?
I,
Did you bring those up?
that Forbes?
No, the other ones.
The other ones that right there?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I don't know how that's gonna work, but,
Yep.
this one, I think there's another one that's a little better. Kind of, yeah, if you go back a couple, then I think we'll see where we are here.
Okay,
This works,
which, that one,
this one.
that one there?
So that's coming up from the right.
That's coming up from the right, the O'Neills are here, and,
Simmons on the other side.
Bill Simmons and his wife are here. If you come up, taking the right-hand turn, coming up Hilltop Circle, all of this down in here is all town property. This is all town property.
Wayne.
down in here.
Does that pink flag show the, is that boundary?
No, well, yes, it is. It's gonna be the driveway.
So they could see it was
They
in over
can
that
see them
far.
in that way, but if you come in here, on this side, if they went around and came back the other side, you've got a mailbox, trees.
Well, there is a cable box, I see.
Electrical box. They have underground,
There's a lot of stuff over here.
well, on the right-hand side.
On the right-hand
Yeah,
side, I see.
that's not a cable box.
What is it?
That's a sample box, that's a water sampling box.
Oh,
We put that in a year or so ago.
So, has Dig Safe been up there in the sense that, I don't know if, we've had numerous complaints about, I guess they didn't, when they put the underground everything up there, they didn't do such a great job a bunch of years ago in the 80s. So are we gonna be running over people's cable and electricity and we're gonna have outages and stuff like that? Do you know, understand what I mean? We have a ton of, we haven't had them in a while, maybe I think I saw some contractors, yeah, some contractors up there doing stuff, but.
We shouldn't have any issues, we're not, you know.
Okay.
Again, I'm not sure where all the utilities run. I know there are some that are under his driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But we should be far enough out in the street that we shouldn't affect any of that.
so, Bob, where that is that clay, dirt, they're gonna be removed and gravel put on? Or is gravel just going on top of that?
I'm not sure what they're gonna do. I would assume they would probably dig this out and put gravel in.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I think there's some people here from the residents. I think they might have, I mean, we don't have any more, I mean, it is what it is, I guess, so.
That's, Any comments we'd like to hear, yeah.
Well, he's coming up. One thing I just want to point out, which was in the correspondence, we did have a resident come in wanting to be sure that the contractors accessing the site take the second right on Robin Road, not the first one. And you saw from the correspondence from Mike Goutte, he did communicate that to the current contractor, and that's how they've been doing it. And that's how he would intend to direct the town contractor as well.
And there were some comments about putting up temporary signs on the street. Has that been done? Related to?
That would be the intent once any.
We talked about no parking signs at one point.
Forbes, have you seen any signs?
No, so Forbes, Area 15, Hilltop Circle, couple quick points and then answer your questions. I had a conversation it was either Wednesday or Thursday with Mike before he left for Maryland. And I thought we kind of talked through a scenario that I thought would address both sides of the access on Hilltop. The conversation about the larger steel trucks having access in a counterclockwise circle makes sense. It would be tough to get them in going the way the board initially voted. The thought that Mike and I had addressed was that to maintain the direction of traffic as the board had voted last year, which would be in a clockwise fashion with the exception of the steel trucks, because Mike said basically, this is what Mike told me in the conversation, is that the number of large steel trucks for the frame and the tower is a much smaller number than the actual trucks that are going to provide fill and gravel to create that road up there. Last Thursday, I watched one of the Clark full-body dump trucks come in counterclockwise, stop, and then back into that access road. So if they can back into it going clockwise, I'm sure they can drive into it, a regular dump body. So I don't know if Mike said he was going to either speak with the town manager or the board or submit a letter. I don't know if he did that, but that was the nature of the conversation that we had. To answer the chairman's question, no, there are no signs up there. And I would definitely echo the point that the fiber optic that's on the street there is very shallow and it's very close to the edge of the road. When I say shallow, I mean 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches. And most of the neighbors will tell you exactly that.
And it's not in any protective stuff either.
Correct. Yeah, they just threw the line down.
Oh, it's not in.
Yeah. Nope, that happened right after Suzanne and I moved in, so I can verify that. So, yeah, no, there's no signage, and there's no mention about, there's, nothing there about parking at this point. So anyway, that was a suggestion that I thought I would present to the board, and that was, again, from a direct conversation that I had with Mike.
So just out of curiosity, the comment about the depth of the conduit or the non-conduit, the cable is buried. The takeaway from that is it's really important that the trucks stay on the pavement.
Correct.
Because
Without a doubt.
because
Yep.
if the ground's wet or something, they sink in 4 inches or 6 inches.
I believe the Verizon phone and the Comcast are a little deeper and a little further off, but I do know that the FiOS lines and one other set of lines they're laid separately, and the story that I was told is when the prior owners of our place put snow stakes in one year and went right through the line, and I've heard that from a couple other neighbors. So it's right there.
We've been hearing complaints for years up there.
Yep.
Anything we could do to help them, just try to get your power used to go out all the time.
And they've improved that, which is great.
Put a new transformer a couple years ago.
Yes.
3 years ago.
One other point I'd like to make, and this is part of the original set of conversations that I had with Selectman Kemper and former Selectman Anderson last year, was that the access, may I approach that? The access portion to Hilltop Circle right here has a not tremendous, but significant amount of branches from white pine and from white birch trees that are physically in the road. And since we're concerned about the width of the road to begin with, and it's an uphill curve, you have line of sight issues. I took some kind of horrible pictures today, but you can physically, I'm parked in the road right now.
So that's in the middle of the road?
Yeah, so I'm on the road right now. You can see the trees right there.
And that's just before the circle?
No, that's actually just before where my driveway is, but if you
Okay.
could back up 2 photos where the pine tree, yeah, that's just before you get up to the circle.
Okay.
So that whole area from Crescent up to the actual circle itself, there are a number of trees up there that really could stand some good pruning, because there is, if you drive up there, if you come down or if you're coming up, there's a line of sight issue.
And it's gonna make you not utilize the whole road.
That's exactly my point, and since it's narrow to begin with, it just creates further, potential. So, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's all, looking at the, I guess I'm confused. Looking at the pictures, it seemed like there was stuff that was on the left-hand side of the entrance that would be difficult to make doing a counterclockwise turn. And yet, this is what now everyone's asking to change to. I'm getting confused, but.
Let's see, is there any way we can bring that back, that
I
picture?
think this map that you
Because
see
there
here,
was nothing on the right, and therefore, I don't know, the trailer, it seemed like it was tighter on the left-hand side, which would make a counterclockwise turn harder, I think.
Can we, the picture, is there a picture? I think the picture is the thing that, I mean,
The picture that.
there you go.
was
Well, right there, that's it. That's it, that's the entrance.
Okay, go,
That's the entrance.
okay, see, right there's a mailbox, so wouldn't that be easier to get in?
The other way? The counterclockwise way?
Counterclockwise.
Yeah, and there's a tree there.
If you're coming counterclockwise, you're taking the right-hand turn.
Yeah, well, that's,
Okay.
that arrow is counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise, okay.
That's counterclockwise going up that way. Somewhere in here, I don't know exactly where it is, but there is the property line. There's more town property over here than there is over here.
Okay.
It's in
One of those
the-
pictures does have stakes on both sides.
Yeah, but this is basically on O'Neill's property, roughly, so,
Okay.
to me,
Okay,
it's.
and it also looks like it goes, there's a little culvert, it
So-
goes down a little bit, yeah, okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask
Yeah.
Forbes a question? Forbes, you live this. It's easy for us just to say things, right? So what is your reason why you want them to go clockwise, not counterclockwise?
So the initial thinking on this was actually access on the other side of Hilltop Circle, which is as you approach and get onto
beginning
Hill,
of the
at the
circle.
beginning.
okay.
Remember when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
came
yeah,
up
now,
and
okay,
former
that's-
selectman then? Yeah, so
Yeah, thank you.
it is far easier in terms of accessing the base of the circle to make a left-hand turn
Rather
than
than
it is a right-hand turn. But given the discussion here, it makes sense that the big steel trucks would have a tough time making a left-hand turn. And that, if I may, one more time, this is why when Mike and I were speaking, we both thought that it would make sense that if the large steel trucks, the wide loads, the extra long trucks would make, it would be an exception to the formally voted in clockwise approach, that those dozen or so steel trucks would access in a counterclockwise fashion so that they could actually make that turn. Because it does make sense, that would be tough for them. But as I said, in terms of a full dump body, I watched one of the Clark trucks last Thursday pull right up just like that and then back in.
You say full dump, is that an 18-wheeler or?
No, sorry, a full, so it'd be a 12,
A
yeah,
big dump truck.
yeah. Not an attached,
Yeah.
yeah, correct.
Okay.
So the access issue at the outset was on the other end of the
Got it,
circle.
I remember now.
Okay.
Thank you. And you have no problem with that? So what do we need to do on that? Just say,
So
we have
wanna
a
just make an exception? to what-
exception to the big ones
Yeah.
that they can go counterclockwise.
Can I just ask a couple, I got a lot of open questions here. Can I just ask, so when we talk about the truck traffic coming in, are we signing something with, or is this just a memo that was sent into the contractor to say, this is how you tell your trucks how to go? Or are we trying to put some funky sign at the top of the intersection of the circle that says,
Well, you
Small
know,
trucks,
we also
big
wanted
trucks.
to reinforce
Yep.
the speed limit on the straightaway,
Yep.
going up to the circle, and.
Wasn't there?
so that's on my list too. So,
Yeah.
so the speed limit says in the ruling from you guys was 20 miles an hour.
That's
And,
what I was.
and that would be an advisory speed, it wouldn't be a legal speed, it'd be an advisory speed, because we can't lower the speed to 20 miles an hour
Right.
legally. So we put up black and yellow signs, which is in their documentation, which is advisory signs, the officer could warn somebody to say, you're going too fast for this type of neighborhood. Legally, he could tag somebody for driving unsafely, I've just never heard of anybody tagging somebody under the speed limit, but they can warn somebody for driving too fast. The black and yellow signs are advisory. Speed's still 30 miles an hour, 35.
It's like
But,
an advisory
but
sign, we
we'd
have to
rather
remember
have a
Actual.
giant steel truck going 20.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So
Wayne,
that's,
We all want to play well together, that's all we're trying to
Close.
do.
yes, absolutely.
Closer to your mouth.
Oh, I'm
Just so
sorry,
people can-
sorry.
Yeah, that was a complaint that we got, you
Yep.
and Rick.
Yep, so,
Please,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
so we
What other
designed
questions
one.
you have on signs before I have a
Okay.
question?
So the speed limit sign, we already did design one, it's in their memo. There's another sign about children at play. We talked about that, I showed them a design of that, we could post on the street to give the drivers a warning. The other question I had was the no parking signs.
That's
We
the
talked
one
about
up
no
over,
parking.
yeah.
So is that,
We talked about
24 hours a
parking
day.
Up through here.
Yeah.
Because I guess in real life.
Okay.
People park there.
Yep.
And there's no way a truck's gonna be able to do anything if people park there.
so it's not the whole circle in general, Steve, Forbes, you don't remember it being?
It
was.
Was it?
it probably should be.
I
Okay.
thought we were thinking.
Okay.
full circle.
Yeah.
Whole circle and the
Yeah.
entrance to
Okay.
the circle.
So,
I think in fairness to everyone, you know, if you're gonna restrict a couple households, you probably should,
Yep.
you know, apply the same to everybody.
okay,
The actual on-street parking is more of an issue where Selectman Kemper pointed
Yeah.
out, but
Okay.
again, you know, the truck would have the same problem if it was further up the, you know.
okay.
And those signs should say weekdays because
Well, that's what I
there
was-
won't be any
yeah.
construction during the weekend. So if people have a party or
Yeah.
they have people over, generally more on the weekends, you see people parking cars.
So-
And just think, I mean, just in terms of, it's, we're talking about really wide trucks going around a curved surface, parked cars. People don't, it's.
Kids
it's
on
also-
bikes.
Okay.
It's also protective to their vehicles too, so they don't get scratched.
So like, we're looking like for no parking, like 7 AM to 7 PM? Monday
7 to
through
5, because they're
7 to
supposed,
5?
they're only supposed to be constructing. We said they can get there at 6:45 to set up, because we didn't want trucks staging people out there at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it ends at 5, and we say they can leave by 5:15 or something like that.
Okay. That makes sense.
Would it make sense to, I know you mentioned something about trying to avoid people taking the wrong route, but would it make sense, say, on either end of Crescent Drive and maybe on the first entrance to Robin Road, to post a sign during this project that says, you know, no construction vehicle, you know, just so people don't, you know, so drivers don't inadvertently,
Mhm.
you know,
Take that.
yeah, take that road.
Because if they are coming from Wisconsin, they
Mhm.
may not know that there's two consistent
Right,
roads.
right.
Well, I had a note about Robin Road to give to Mike about, Break Hill Water Tank Project, trucks take next right, because they
Yeah.
might, so I made a note of that, something, so, because Robin Road is Robin Road, they're gonna
Yeah.
take a right on Robin
I
Road.
guess I also envision
So-
somebody coming up and having been warned about a tight turn onto the construction road and getting up to Crescent Drive and saying, boy, that is a tight turn, and turning into Crescent Drive.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And who knows, you know, things happen.
And
Yep, we plan for the worst and expect the best.
I mean, I mean, again, it's just signs, it's just people have to look at signs, that the whole street's gonna be flooded with signs, which if they could deal with, that's fine.
I guess it's
you know.
someone gets on
Yeah, I mean, I think they were really anxious about the 20 mile an hour, which we want to stick out, and the children at play. We could always add, I mean, the sign is $38. I mean, it's not like it's $300.
If I might, for just a second.
Okay.
This part of Crescent Drive is wide open. You could put a sign right here that said tank site,
Straight ahead.
pointed up the hill or something like that.
Yeah, it's all, there's nobody there.
Wide open, there's
Yep.
no one there, you can do a sign
Yep.
that says, up the hill, you're way off. Yeah.
It's almost like a wayfinding sign. We're doing a little wayfinding to get people.
Thank you. Oh, are we done with? I have a question from the water on this memo that was sent in July.
I think we're good, yeah.
So, Bob, I don't know if you can speak to it, or Angus, maybe you can relay it, but it says to that end, we would like to ask the following of the residents that would be issue anything that happens, please call the water department immediately. And the water does not routinely review social messages and stuff like that. So, what type of expectation? So, if it's off hours, I mean, you're 8 to 4:30. The site's from 7 to 5. So should they call the police or something like that if something's happening?
I think the one thing that was kind of my idea. The one thing I don't want is somebody, if something happened, and they put it on Facebook. We do not monitor Facebook.
Well, you don't want them to put it on Facebook thinking they've notified you guys. That's what I mean?
Don't put it on Facebook, call us and call the police department immediately.
Okay.
Obviously, if it's after 5 o'clock or something going on, or, you know, if you can't get hold of us, call the police department. It didn't happen. But don't put it on Facebook, expect that we're gonna see it, we're not.
Okay.
We don't want it.
And what kind of expectation will people have that they're going to get called back within 24 hours?
Hopefully within an hour.
Well, if it's 4 o'clock or 4:30 and nobody gets it, like it would be by the next day. It won't be like days. You know what I mean?
As soon as we get the call, one of us will call Mike, or somebody will call.
Okay,
Okay.
that's cool.
We'll make sure that we're in touch.
No, of course. Yeah. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
That's a good question, Glenn, yeah. So, are we all sort of happy?
I think it's been pretty well planned overall, I really do, and I think both the DPW and the water department, the board of selectmen have responded to the residents' concerns.
Thank you.
So I just want to say, I said this,
Hopefully you feel the same way halfway through.
I said this last time, but I want to say it again. The Hilltop Circle to the tank will be an active construction site. Everyone, please stay away from the site during the construction to help a safe, efficient workplace. So don't go wandering around there when there's 18-wheelers and giant steel beams going up a gravel road. Take a walk somewhere else.
Take a walk on the wild side. Thank you.
So, Archie, just one thing. So, so under the statute that governs this, any restrictions that you place only become effective after they're advertised in the local paper. So I think Mike and I are clear on the direction that you sent, so we'll write something up for the paper. We'll probably send it around to you just to take a look at it, make sure we've got it right before we go ahead and put it in the paper, but that's when it becomes effective.
What do we have to see? I'm just trying to get it done.
So I've heard advisory
Well,
signs, speed
I
limit,
understand
20
all
miles.
of them, but if we're
Right.
pretty well set with it, I don't want, then if I don't see it one day, then you
Yeah.
don't get in the paper, then it could be another week.
All
I'd
right,
rather,
I think I've got it. Advisory signs, speed limit 20 miles
You
per
look at
hour,
it.
no parking around
Okay.
circle.
I'm fine if one of these guys look at it. I don't need to look. I just want to get
Did I
it done.
understand correctly that the board's intent was clockwise traffic flow except for large trucks, which is counterclockwise?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and
Well,
children
the
up-
steel trucks, not large trucks, because I think they're all large. The big steel truck,
Probably a good way to characterize that.
the big, because they're all going to be big. The big steel trucks that there was a concern that they couldn't make the turn or something.
We say tractor trailers, or are we still worried just tractor, what's the same?
Well, we may have to play that by ear or see how
Tractor
they
trailers.
make it, yeah.
Body that's gonna have a tough time
So
making that
while
turn.
we got tractor trailer, counterclockwise,
Mhm.
counterclockwise, and
Everything else, the other way.
everybody else alone, let them find their.
Hopefully, there isn't another one coming the other direction at exactly the same time.
Is that really confusing, to
I find it confusing.
I mean, yeah, I guess I don't understand.
So if you just said tractor trailers, I'm just saying, if you just said tractor trailers use this route, leave it like that. Because I think it does get confusing, so you go this way, you go that way. Suggested tractor trailer route.
Yeah, see, that's
Just
why I
leave it
was
like that,
confused.
let everybody else find their way there. That's it.
Okay, why don't we, let's let it, it's a plan. We can always amend it, because we're all just sitting here looking at maps. When real life happens, we hear some things for some residents maybe, it's not working as well we all anticipated, then we can always amend it. And I would think that you wanna give the DPW director the authority, or Angus the authority to change anything for safety reasons that we voted on, so we don't have to wait for a meeting to then re-vote it? You know what I mean by that? You know, we're just assuming this is all gonna work well. But we could have them temporarily change it because they feel it's a safety issue, and then it could be then addressed at our next meeting, rather than waiting for a selectmen's meeting and something could happen in the interim. I don't mean to make that complicated, not meeting longer, but I'm just thinking about real life. I'm just wondering, still, should we have just
Left it alone.
left everything counterclockwise, because it's shorter and then there's no confusion, but I don't know.
It strikes me that it ought to all be counterclockwise, because that's the way you would normally enter a circle anyway. And if for the big vehicles, the best way, then why would it be? I mean, I understand, because I've ridden the bike up there enough, I understand the lay of the circle and how it flows, you know, depending upon what direction you're travel you're doing. But, you know, if the larger trucks are gonna do better counterclockwise, then it doesn't seem that the smaller trucks are gonna have an issue with it, and why have two standards, or, you know, two sets of rules? Guess we're really making this one confusing.
Can I add something to that? Is it just for, is it just for the construction vehicles, or is it for everybody in the neighborhood? So now you got a bunch of different messages that if you're in a pickup truck, you go this way because you're working on the site. If you're a heating van, you go this way.
It needs to be one way, and it has to be for all vehicle traffic, because you can't have somebody coming the other way with a truck coming that way. And then now they're playing, chicken.
I mean, it's fine to just leave it the way it is and say suggest a truck route for tractor trailers and do whatever way we wanna go. And leave it like that and let people get to the site, minus the tractor trailers go and suggest the way we want them to go. And this would at least control that message, I think.
But what about maybe the even though more annoying to residents, maybe in terms of safety and ultimately overall maybe everything should be counterclockwise until this is over with. Because if you've got a big truck and someone's coming down the hill clockwise, and someone's coming up with an 18-wheeler, they're not gonna get by anyway.
Or a minivan filled with kids or whatever.
I don't know.
It's just an inconvenience to the neighborhood themselves. They have to.
Especially if, like for Forbes, he lives on the right, if we do it the other way, he has to go all the way around.
Yes. Are we making things worse?
Yes.
Any comments, or?
No, but, yeah.
We're gonna way deep into this.
Yeah, I know.
Traffic flows in both directions up there.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be, I think the initial discussion was to have, one way apply to everyone, and the suggestion tonight was strictly based on a conversation I had with Mike about the supposition that those steel trailers were gonna be wide loads and they would be attended anyway, and that would be a minimal exception, but if that's not the case, it just gets silly doing that, and it should probably just all go one way.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we decide?
So during, and don't know if you want to put restriction, but you just want to, during business hours, during the hours of operation, that it's one way?
I would strongly not recommend that.
No, okay, all right.
Why?
Because I don't know, a holiday, if I'm new to the neighborhood, I'm driving out the operations of what.
Okay, that's fine, that's your.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
That's a good answer.
24 hours or
Okay.
nothing, I would think, just
Okay.
keep it simple.
Okay,
You don't want weekends, screw
Okay.
people, you don't want one, oh, I forgot it was Saturday, I'm retired, I don't care.
okay,
Then I come out, I took a right, I took to the left, so I think it's 24/7.
okay,
And it's simple.
Yeah.
Couple of one-way signs, we call it a day.
yeah, so it's an inconvenience to the people who live there
Yeah.
for the period of construction, and that's.
One way, except for the exceptions for the people with the wide loads, and they're going to be attended anyways. That's,
No, it's one way including the wide load,
So the one way we were talking was going,
Wayne, I think your mic's off.
Counterclockwise.
I think it might be out of batteries. Grab the other one.
Yeah, I got everybody counterclockwise.
That's what I'm hearing.
Going once, going twice.
We've already beat this to death.
Yeah.
This was like the least thing I thought. I'm the one who said, just let Angus and not, wait.
Okay.
We don't need to get involved.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Everybody one way counterclockwise.
Okay.
Okay. That was going around in circles. Okay. Sorry. Request for appointment to the, as a full member or associate member to, let's see,
Associate.
associate member of the Open Space Committee.
Make a motion that Carol Becker is an associate member of the Open Space Committee.
We actually do have Ms. Decker here tonight if you want to interview.
Oh,
You. District Court Committee?
we generally ask the people come in when we don't really know them. If you have any questions of us, we ask questions.
If you just, this button, that light will turn green when you press that button. There you go. Thanks.
So how do you feel about open space? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Do you have any questions of us, or you want to talk? I don't know. I mean,
No, just happy to be part of the committee. I attended the meeting the other night, and yeah, lots to do on the Open Space Committee. We have lots of goals, so I think it'll be an
Thank you.
action-packed year.
thanks, Forbes. How,
Carol's highly credentialed.
I guess so. So you live on Tewksbury, that's in between Crane Neck and
Right,
Georgetown.
yeah.
How do you feel about your guardrails that are over that little stream down there? Do you know which one I'm talking
They're
about?
old, but I think they're
Okay, I'm just,
rather quaint.
no, I've gotten a lot of complaints recently that they're unsafe and
Oh.
that little stream, that kids are going, never mind now. You're not supporting my argument.
I'm
You're not
sorry.
supporting my argument.
not exactly the Missouri.
Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
not that many people in the lane, so it's, wow.
Good.
It'd be fun for them to stand and look at Job Swamp. It's so beautiful, so, good stuff.
So-
Make a motion?
Yeah, well,
I'll second.
Okay.
excellent.
Good.
Okay, but hold on, I'm sorry. I don't mean, generally we have an end date. I just wasn't sure when that was.
It's a one-year appointment, so
Okay.
through June 15th of 2020.
Got it.
Marla, do you have a question?
I just want to, do you know her credentials? Would you just ask her what she did before she?
Oh, sure, yeah, I guess we should document it.
Oh, we know, we actually know because we're reading them.
So,
We're very fortunate to
yeah,
have
Carol, can you give us a quick verbal resume?
Yeah. I recently retired from Mass Audubon. I worked at the Ipswich River Wildlife Sanctuary and was the sanctuary director.
Oh, wow.
Put in 29 years, so have lots of experience with lots of different issues in the environmental field with the education, hiring staff, budgeting. So we started with a $300,000 budget back in '94, and we're now over about a $1.2 million budget, having a fully licensed nature preschool. So the sanctuary really grew through the years. So a lot of education programs.
Yeah, I can, speak in for my experience, being on a couple of walks with like Carol, she's, down in the, River Bend area. She's, very knowledgeable and,
Thank you.
and clearly enjoys, transferring the info she knows to other people, when she's out in our open space. So, that's probably good from the standpoint of the long-term mission of open space of helping to get other people excited.
Well, there's so many incredible places here. It's pretty fortunate for the town. Yeah, we need to get people out and celebrate all the open spaces here. So, yeah,
Terrific.
happy to be involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded? Aye.
Aye.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
There's,
So you have to be.
yeah, there are some certain things you need to do. You need probably go see the town clerk tomorrow, and he'll take care of that for you. Or it doesn't have to be tomorrow, or the next day.
Okay, great.
You have to get sworn in, you have to take an ethics thing online. You might, just things to be on committees. No heavy lifting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to postpone the discussion of burying the time capsule.
This thing is it tonight.
Next item, the Historical Commission notice regarding the creation of 3 National Historic Districts in town. Bob?
I don't have that much information on it, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't realize it could be discussed tonight.
He's the water man tonight, not the historical man tonight.
Archie, I can speak to that. So the board did previously vote in May to support the Historical Commission moving forward to potentially create 3 National Historic Districts. What you have in front of you is the same letter that went to all of the property owners within any of the 3 potential districts. This is an early step in the process for them to simply notify people that this is under consideration. As you can see from the letter, there is an option for specific property owners to opt out of the designation. So obviously that would be a option available to the board, just as it would any other property owner. It's my guess that's not the direction you'll take, but I think that this is before you primarily because the notice was provided to the office, and so this was the venue for you to receive the notice. As you see in the letter, the Historical Commission will be scheduling an informational meeting at some point in the future, and obviously when we learn about that, we'll make sure the board is made aware.
So who does this? Who does the application?
My understanding is the commission.
I would think, if I believe we'd be asked to do that, I think that would, take the lead in doing that.
The work that was done last year.
Require hiring someone, Bob, or you think it's relatively straightforward?
It's pretty much straightforward, as far as everything I've heard is pretty much straightforward.
The work that was done last year was really the jumping off point for that, because as you know, that resulted in the creation of the Form Bs, the very detailed analysis of the different properties. So now that the commission has all of that background research, it basically, that's the documentation, substantially to create the districts. So they're basically taking all of that information that was prepared by the consultant last year and using it to kind of move forward with a policy based on that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no action requested of you
Right.
tonight.
So, last time the board recommended that the town seek funding to fund $30,000 to get a better, a more complete report from the engineering consultant on what we need to do to get to actually doing some bricks and mortar repairs at the car post. So our charge was to Angus to see if we can dig up enough funds to come up with that 30,000. So do you want to talk to that, Angus?
Sure. So you have in front of you a memo that summarizes where I think the money can come from. First, I want to just report for those who aren't aware, the Community Preservation Committee did vote unanimously among the 5 members present last Thursday evening to support the request to put $7,500 of administrative funding toward this effort. Their vote was contingent on that being part of the full scope of work, so consistent with this board's direction. So once the full funding is secured, then the $7,500 is made available. So the within the operating budget going into last week's meeting, I had, I felt I could commit $7,500 between both the Selectmen's technical professional services operating budget and the buildings and grounds operating budget. There's not really any fat in either of those, so it's not like that money's just sitting there without, I mean, that will come at a cost, but I felt comfortable with that number. Myself and Wayne, between us, felt we could come up with the $7,500. Then there's the $7,500 in admin funds. We are very confident that there's at least $11,000 in private donations coming toward this effort.
It's terrific.
I have a couple of verbal commitments. I don't want to get into specifics because I don't want to get ahead of, written commitment, but also more importantly, I don't want to, I think that once those are received, that's going to be, people need to be recognized in a public meeting. And so I've kind of penciled that in for the next Selectmen's meeting. And the procedure for that would be the board would vote to accept the funds into a gift account and to authorize their use for this purpose. So that's very, very promising. And then elsewhere within the operating budget, I was looking at the balance, which would be about 4,000. That would get us to 30. More recently, Wayne's done some, he was out last week, but today he did look at a town meeting article. He and I haven't had a chance to review this, so I'm not sure if that's the right answer or if the operating budget, but I am confident that we can get to the 30,000 with that, with those private contributions. Without it, it would be very challenging.
Terrific.
That's great.
Can we make sure that they want to be publicly?
Exactly.
Sometimes
They
they
may
don't.
not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jen?
Is there some place that people can send donations to?
Not
Once a
until
gift account-
August 5th, we set up a gift account.
Exactly. That's, once a gift account is established, gifts can be sent. They do need to be voted by the board to accept the funds, even, whether it's $10 or $10,000.
So that's coming.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So my intent, as I set out in the memo, so as not to delay the project, my intent, unless there's any objection from the board, would be to enter into an agreement with the contract, with the consultant, for up to the amount that I can commit within the operating budget, and then to authorize the balance of work after the gift funds are actually received, which would also be the trigger at which point the $7,500 in CPC funds would be available. Because since that was contingent on it being the full contract, I can't authorize those funds until we have the full amount. So I expect that would be 2 weeks from tonight. And, the money that I could authorize in the meantime would more than cover the work that would be done by the
So I think I asked this last time, but just to reiterate, so they think they could get the report in time for us to make use of it before October.
Yes, yes, that's been the direction right along. And, so I appreciate very much what this board has done and what the CPC did last Thursday night, and really moving quickly to respond to what was in front of them, and because time is of the essence to maintain that timeline.
Okay, Item F. Post Building Committee, charge of the committee. And so Angus has come up with, some bullet points on, specifics of what we would like how the committee to work, in coordination with the consultant. So just briefly, the committee is established as a study and advisory committee for the following purposes. Engage the public involvement in the planning and process for the car post property, including but not limited to providing updates for posting to the town social media and website. Conduct 2 or more meetings with agendas and minutes and supporting materials, and made publicly available in compliance with applicable law. With public input, prepare 1 or more recommendations for potential uses of the property, whether in the near term or over a longer term horizon, taking into account information as available from town staff, including but not limited to the DPW director, building inspector, council on aging director, library director, and existing town officials, including but not limited to the historical commission, finance committee, parks and rec, and the board of selectmen. Item 4, on an ongoing basis, review and evaluate interim and final products provided by the administrative office as prepared by the vendor pursuant to a contract to provide building assessment, design, engineering, and cost estimating services. Item 5, make 1 or more committee representative available to attend regularly scheduled meetings of the Board of Selectmen if and as needed on September 13th, 16th, and 30th. That seems overly horrible. On the basis of the work completed, prepare recommendations for presentation to the Board of Selectmen as they prepare for a fall town meeting funding proposal to the CPC and to the special town meeting October 29th, 2019.
So this is really a draft, and any input changes, obviously, it's the board's charge, so I just wanted to put something in front of you that you could respond to, but I take no pride of ownership, so.
My only comment is, you know, one or more recommendation for potential uses of the property. Is that too narrow or is it too open? It's a hard thing to say. Is having 2 good ideas a good thing, and or coming up with 17 ideas? I don't know. I don't know what the residents will. If that's the only thing it is, I'm not going to like it. Or if we have too many, then people will say, well, you haven't narrowed it down. So that's a very, very tough question.
It's, the intent is, so within the architect's scope is to basically work with the town to kind of facilitate a conversation about use. As we talked about last week, there's no expectation that the architect has, or that I have, speaking for myself, that we're gonna know definitively at the October town meeting what a specific use is. I think it's, they need to know what class of use for code compliance purposes. But I think that it is something people will ask about at the CPC process at town meeting. So it seemed like it would be good to have something in the charge that kind of supports what the architect is needing to do to facilitate that conversation. Not to say it'll get to a definitive outcome, but it's going to be part of the conversation. So it was intended to kind of support where the architect needs to, because they can't get there without the people involved in the conversation. And I thought the committee could continue to play an important role in helping to get the word out to the public and get the residents involved.
Let me ask this: would some use that would say at most have a dozen people in there at a time, would that change the way the outside? If at the moment we're concentrating on the the structure of the building rather than the internal components. If we're having a use that, say it was museum oriented and there was at most, say, 12 people there at a time versus something where it's a public meeting place where there might be 39 people in there at a time, would that affect how the consultants would come up with their plan? Would that matter? I don't know, I'm just asking that. Do we need to be that specific, or maybe we do, I don't know.
I think if they're considering public assembly as one of the potential uses, I think the square footage is gonna dictate what the load-bearing capacity needs to be for that, even if in reality it's more than we would think would actually be there. But I believe that's all prescribed by the code. Once
So in other
you're
words,
into that
then
public
the
assembly
joists-
category
then the
use.
joists in the first floor have to be different if we're gonna have 45 people in there versus if we're gonna have 10, I don't know.
But I think it's the square footage, like you said.
Okay.
So, you know, it's all about how big it is, the potential amount of people there. Because I don't think
Okay,
when you
so if
do,
it's 100 square feet, you can only have 8 people there, or whatever.
There's some
Yeah.
type of
Okay,
formula.
There's a formula, okay.
it's like if you look at the annex, there's the building inspector is the person who determines that. There's a number of people that can be in that room if they're standing. There's a number of people that can be in that room if they're sitting. There's a number of people that can be in that room if they're sitting at a table. So it's actually that it changes.
I think also the load is, I think the people load is also driven, you know, as Angus said, if it's public assembly, you know, if there will be public events occurring there, whether it be a meeting or something else, that, you know, there's one set of assumptions on how many people will be there, whereas if it's a museum and people go there, you know, sort of independently, you know, not in an organized fashion, then the number of people, and hence the load, is probably assumed to be less.
But you build it differently, that's my question.
Don't know.
I think you build a building for 100 or 10, because you can't control what the use is gonna be, which is.
It's the square footage, it's how big,
Okay.
yeah.
It's part of the period, that's it, because you could say it's a museum, then 8 years now, it can be another meeting place with.
Okay.
So it's the fire chief will say what the maximum is for safety, and the building inspector will say what it could be for weight wise.
Thanks, Larry.
So Bob, how do you, just from your hat of being on this committee, how do you feel about having to come up with potential uses in a very short order? You okay with that, or?
Well, first of all, I gotta say that, from the very beginning, I never thought that it was up to the committee to pick the use for that building. I've got, and I think everybody should be saying this before, I've got like a dozen things running around my head that we could use it for. I don't personally feel that it's up to the committee to tell the town what we're going to do this with. I think we can put out several ideas, and I think the town is the one that needs to make a decision of what they'd like to see in that building. And then we can design for or plan for that.
Whatever they want.
Whatever they want. I see actually multiple uses. You know, council on aging for one would like it. There's been thought about the possibility of using it.
Some program usage.
Some program usage and stuff like that. So I mean, stuff like that. I'd like to see. And one other thing is, Angus brought up the fact that people pay donations. I'm just wondering if there isn't some way the town could set up like a tax-free type thing or whatever.
What's a tax-free thing?
Well, like a 401, whatever
For people to give money to?
people give money to.
Well, we are-
Tax credit or.
Well, if you make a donation to a town like that, you can take that off your taxes. So it's automatically, so we're setting up a gift account So anybody who gives that money, it's
So
like,
something to a town is automatically, what, CV or whatever?
Yeah, it can be considered a charitable contribution,
Okay.
provided that you're not getting some type of service.
excuse me, Mike, you need to get into, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but this is information. Everybody's going, oh.
This is important.
Yeah.
But provided that you're not getting some type of service in return.
I'll give you 50 grand and if you give me the contract.
Well, what happened was, is that now that they changed the tax law, that some municipalities tried to encourage people to give them gifts, and as a result, they would give them discounts on their taxes. And
Seriously? Give me
IRS
100,000?
said, no,
Okay.
you're not gonna be able to do that because you were getting something. So as long as it's a gift and you're not getting a service or product in return, it can be considered a tax deduction.
Question?
What about if you're giving, and then you're gonna attend the council on aging program?
That's not the same.
That's not the same.
So you're getting something.
You are getting something.
Well, no, you're saying an elderly, somebody that's 78 years old and they give $10,000 because they want to do something, but in 3 years, they're doing a quilting class there with the Council on Aging. That's not, yeah. Well, that was a question. That was a question.
And if I also could, just, if anyone's going to that, cultural mapping, I'm going to it, but anyone from the town, my understanding is that this is the kind of thing that they would be able to help with in terms of suggesting ideas for uses of certain cultural assets in town.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking that if somebody could get a tax break or something.
Well, they can.
People would know it, and I didn't realize that, but.
Yep.
Just.
People give their cars for the fire department to chop up. It's the same as giving it the cards to kids. They can take a charitable donation.
You can give an old car and get a tax deduction for it.
Yeah, you can.
No, I want to get rid of an old car and get a fire truck.
You can't take a deduction.
Got the old forestry truck. Okay, thank you.
Request to declare the.
Just to get some closure on the committee charge. So there's a couple of items before you in addition to the text. One is the committee composition. Up till now, it's had 3 members. There's been discussion among some of the these informal meetings that have happened in the last couple of months about expanding to 5. I would recommend 5.
Make a motion that we make the committee 5 people.
Second, I didn't know it was.
I didn't know we had a limit on it, quite honestly.
And I'm not sure, it actually was set up, if you go back to the notes, it was originally envisioned as 5, but in practice, it's been 3. So I just really wanted to confirm.
I think it's been more. People have left and.
I don't even think we realized it was
But
going to.
that would also, now that it's been, I don't know if I have a motion in a second, assuming you guys all vote, that we can put out a call for 2 more committee members. That's part of what I want to clarify, because we do know of at least one and probably a couple of people who might be interested.
So, and what you're proposing is 1 rep with expertise in historical preservation, architecture, and or civil engineering, and another rep with expertise in construction with emphasis on historically sound building renovation.
Well, that would be
That
preferable.
would be nice, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
get an expert
we've
for
probably
free.
already
Yeah.
seen people with those, meeting those descriptions sitting in on the meeting, so that's good. So
That's right.
Suggest that.
Oh, okay.
People
I
who
got
are
you.
willing and able and
I got you.
interested in participating.
Okay,
Or you meet those qualifications.
good point, Rick.
And this also presumes the reappointment of the 3 existing members, Bob Janes, Rick Atwater, Marley Switzer, but just to point out, those appointments haven't been made yet. So I'm presuming that, but that also needs to happen.
Have they been asked that they want to be reappointed like we done all the other committee members?
I don't know if we formally did that.
What else are you going to do, Bob?
Okay, good, yeah.
You're delivering mail now, right? Still?
And anyone interested should contact your.
Yes.
Okay, call the vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Go ahead.
No, I made the motion, I think Rick seconded it. about 5 people, just to reaffirm that, to make sure there's not any, aye.
And so, we'll make a motion about reappointing.
You would just reappoint everybody at the same time, or are their appointments already have gone? Oh, yeah, they've gone. Okay, so who is on it that wants to be reappointed, Angus?
Bob Janes, Rick Atwater, and Marley Switzer.
So moved for term ending when? Is it a yearly appointment?
It's 1 year, yeah.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Request to declare a surplus the animal control van that is now taken out of service and no longer registered, as there is a new one in use. So do we think this vehicle has any value?
Well, it is what it is, so I would just ask that we vote to have it surplus, and then have the best, is he, where do you go?
You want for a drink of water?
Oh, I would've had him fill mine.
Asked a question and.
Where we can.
Who's up,
Right?
Oh, what its value is, it's not our problem.
Yeah, and have Angus take, get the highest value you can get for it. So I make a motion that we declare the ACO van surplus.
The old ACO.
The old ACO van surplus, thank you. So the discussion would be the,
Proviso that,
yeah.
The town manager, dispose of it to get the highest possible value,
correct,
even if that's $37.50.
is what it is.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who made the second?
Rick.
And then Archie made a friendly amendment.
Yep. All right, I'll let you know once we have an idea of, what I've talked with Chief Durand about is, I know you're familiar with, there's a municipal bid service. We thought we would list it there.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on your agenda is proposed extension of the current lease with the Learning Tree for a portion of the Old Town Hall. And,
Make a motion to renew the lease to the portion of the town hall to the Learning Tree for FY20 and FY21.
And I'll second that.
I had no problems with this.
Yep.
Do we want to give it some else? I mean, essentially, the lease is staying, with the exception of some added verbiage about cleaning up after the
Events
after events
on the stage.
inside the old town hall.
Right.
Yep.
So one question I had on that topic, you see in your packet this Exhibit B. This, as you know, was an attachment to a former lease, now 11 years old. Is that necessary to attach with the changed language that Mike McCarron put in, or can that be struck? I think attachment A is very important as defining the leased area, but this attachment B was a carryover from a former lease.
I think it was kind of a problem, wasn't it?
It was before, but not now.
Okay.
But I think we just want to keep it in there to make sure that
See
it
why-
doesn't.
I don't know, I think we should keep it, is my
Okay.
thinking.
There's no- there's
because
no
if
harm
there
to
was
it.
some type of problem that got brought to us, I think, by the old building, maybe Gary, and then it hasn't, if we haven't heard about it, then I guess it hasn't been a problem. So it's probably best that we keep it in there.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item is a discussion of the FY 2018 audit by Roselli Clark and Associates. And I just wanted to talk a little bit, we talked about this a little bit before, but I want to go over the management letter. And bear with me, I have it on my phone and it's in really small print, so. But I'm gonna read the, this is from the management letter from Tony Roselli, and I'm gonna read the part of the discrepancies that the auditor picked up. In 2 prior years, we communicated with the town that the health insurance withholding balances did not reconcile properly, and that a significant deficit also existed. This amounted to approximately $10,000 at the end of year 2016, FY 2016, and $20,000 at the end of FY 2017. This situation was unchanged during the fiscal year 2018, which is what this audit is about. These deficits are, for the most part, the result of non-payment of health insurance obligations by an individual who was on the health insurance rolls through December 2016. We urge the town to negotiate with this individual, make attempts to make the town whole, and we strongly recommend that the town seek advice from outside special counsel. Many issues could evolve as a result of negotiations, such as has an unauthorized loan occurred, or should any resolved negotiation be approved at a town meeting. In addition, while the town was researching this issue, it discovered that insurance deductions were over withheld from 8 employees, amounting to approximately $25,000 for all of FY 2018 and half of FY 2019. We understand that these individuals have been made whole at this point. Controls surrounding the entire withholding process need to be improved dramatically. Monthly reconciliations are a must-have control. It's an odd sentence. Many internal audits should be completed on a sample basis at least quarterly to make sure proper withholdings are made by employee and by the town's monthly insurance bill reconciles back to the withholding amount on the general ledger. So, let's give a, so how did this come to pass? So, I'm going to give a little chronology about that, and then we'll discuss how the town is has addressed these discrepancies in the audit, and how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 32B, both employees and elected officials can enroll in group healthcare insurance. The town contributed 60 to 65% of the monthly premiums with the employee or elected official responsible for the remaining share. The chronology of events. Mr. Kemper enrolled in the town's health insurance from January 2013 through December 2016. He was required to submit monthly premium payments to the town's treasurer collector. Approximately 6 months into his participation in the plan, Mr. Kemper stopped making regular payments towards his portion of the premium. Thereafter, he made sporadic payments on the outstanding amounts. In March 2015, Mr. Kemper filed for personal bankruptcy. At that time, he owed the town $13,798.38 in unpaid premiums. The town, which was considered an unsecured creditor, did not file a notice of claim with the bankruptcy court. Despite the balance and only sporadic payments, he remained enrolled in the town's plan through December 2016, at which time he was disenrolled for non-payment of premiums. From the date he filed for bankruptcy through 2016, he owed an additional $13,646. In early 2019, the town, following the periodic notices to Mr. Kemper, notified him that he owed that particular amount that I just stated in unpaid health insurance premiums for the period April 2015 to December 2016. Prompted by Mr. Kemper's receipt of this notice, the parties then entered into negotiations for an agreement that would require Mr. Kemper to repay the town the amount in question over a period of several years. In early 2019, during these negotiations, the town unexpectedly received 2 cashier's checks from a third party on Mr. Kemper's behalf. One check was written in the amount of $13,793.88, the second for $13,646.36. So, the question is, why did the town, there are a few questions related to this, obviously. Why did the town take so long to address this issue? There was a breakdown in all facets of this debt collection for multiple reasons. 1, there were sporadic payments that contributed to it being intermittently collected. Collections letters were sent by the assistant treasurer collectively, but were not continued indefinitely. There were multiple changes in the finance office that also contributed to it being passed over at different times. The other selectmen did directly request that Mr. Kemper address this issue. There was one payment of $2,000 right after that specific request, and it was assumed that payments would continue after that fact. Finally, this was a difficult issue for employees to address with their boss, and we can understand that. Why did the town not reply to the bankruptcy court? We do not know why the town did not reply. The court notice of bankruptcy in 2015 was addressed to the tax collector, but at that time the incoming correspondence was not being date stamped, so it isn't known for certain when this was received or by whom in the town it was received. The Board of Selectmen was not notified of the bankruptcy notice or its implications regarding the health insurance amounts owed at that time, and in fact was not specifically made aware of this until 2018. Why has this not been made fully public for such a long time? Until fairly recently, the board was concerned because that the amount owed was related to health insurance, it may be confidential information under HIPAA. The board was more recently advised that this matter does not relate to confidential information regarding health conditions or treatments, so may be properly disclosed, but we were not aware of that in the beginning. As noted in the audit report, the discrepancies that I just read, there was an additional uncorrected inadvertent credit in the health insurance account related to an entirely different matter. This was approximately the same amount as that was owed in the opposite direction in the pre-bankruptcy amount. This made the health insurance withholding account appear to be balanced, so it was assumed that that part had been properly written off. This issue has subsequently been fully reconciled, which improved the accuracy of the town's accountant. The selectmen were not aware of this discrepancy in the withholding account until this past summer. That older debt from the prior bankruptcy was not formally written off until this spring. How can this be prevented going forward? The first thing that we have instituted and as recommended by our auditor is monthly health insurance withholding reconciliations. Additionally, the selectmen have removed token stipends from the Board of Selectmen and the assessors so that they will not qualify for health insurance premiums.
Read that last one again.
The selectmen have removed even stipends from the Board of Selectmen and the assessors, so they will not qualify for health insurance benefits.
Do you have the name of the person who paid the additional money? Who's that?
That's,
We do not have.
well, no,
any
see,
idea.
that's false. I didn't know if you have any questions. No one knows. I paid them.
Oh, so that was not, what he said was not correct.
Am
I didn't say anything, I just.
Yes, you did. You said that an outside, no, you did not.
2 cashier's checks from another person.
Yeah, that's what you said. That's what you
Did I
said.
say that?
You
Okay.
said an outside person paid it all up. It's absolutely not true. I walked in with 2 cashier's checks, and I paid my total liability and even more than I was even legally obligated to do.
Glenn is totally correct.
You having fun yet?
No. What, do you have a comment, Mr. Kemper?
Can I get back to you? Because I didn't know this was gonna happen tonight. So, I would prefer if I could get a comment to you.
Okay. Tomorrow.
Hmm?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's the proper one and it's just not one in haste, because I didn't realize, I would have been prepared for one tonight, but I didn't realize this was going to happen tonight. Sorry, Jen. But there's a lot of inaccuracies. I mean, there is a total story of what I was told too. It wasn't just as black as white as it was seemed to have been.
No, but Glenn, I'd like you to comment. I don't want any inaccuracies, you know I don't.
Well, I just saw, I mean,
Okay.
that was one, right? And I was trying to listen as much as I possibly could. So I mean, if this is gonna be a public record, that right there is a public record, so I would actually like a copy of that.
I would too.
Yeah, I would like a copy of that, so then I could then honestly look at it and, go through it, Jen. I mean, that would be only fair.
That's fine, okay.
Can I just ask, I wasn't clear, you had received questions, or those were questions you had, or what were you reading from there?
Well, just basically questions that we anticipated that, basically, we're talking about the audit, and so why did the town drop the ball on this? Why wasn't this picked up, if it had been in the audit for 3 years?
And that was
Well, I gave several reasons
several
for it.
reasons,
Yeah.
those are the reasons that, and you're saying some of that's not accurate?
I'm not sure. I don't know what he's specifically talking to.
So and just so I know, you got those answers from where? Those are your answers, or did you get them from the town council, or?
Those
You
are,
read questions and then you answered them.
right.
So the questions were not were some things that you were anticipating.
These are questions I was
And
anticipating.
then the answers came from you, or did you?
From
You were ready?
discussions with, I had these in consultation with former selectman Joe Anderson, not when he was a former selectman. We anticipated.
How many questions are there? You want to go over them? I mean, if that's a bone of contention, I can answer them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't know. I can't make reference back to it.
Just
So,
to put a point on that though, the answers came from you and Joe Anderson?
yeah, we discussed these probably in like March or April, yes. So, I think it's a legitimate question. Why has this not been made fully public? And how do we prevent this going forward? Those were the big question, and also part 6 was. And why did the town not file with the bankruptcy court?
And you also mentioned something about any kind of illegal payments. Were there any illegal payments that you determined? Because you, and none of you answered that.
I didn't say that.
Yeah, you did, you said something about that.
Me?
I'm making that up. No.
No,
Jared
no,
said
I
something
didn't.
about well, go back and look at what you just read. It says, it was something to the effect of determining, whether the payments made were, in keeping with, whether an unauthorized loan had occurred. That's what it was.
Well, those are questions that the auditor
That
had.
was the question the auditor
The
had.
auditor wanted to know what.
Yes.
So that was not one of your questions.
No.
So, yeah, if I can have a copy of those questions.
Sure.
answers, that would be great. And you'll get back to me with your comments.
Do you have any specific questions now?
I mean, I'm gonna have to look at it, because it's all over the place.
If you could send me some questions or anything, then I'll be glad to answer
I
them.
will, once I get it from the chairman.
Mhm.
Because I don't wanna ask you, I wanna know what to ask you.
It was a, I'll talk about it. I mean, obviously, I wish this never happened, but it did. And, you know, I'm sorry for it to happen, and I'm glad that the town's made whole. Even more than I was legally obligated to pay, it was important for me to make sure the town was made whole.
What do you mean by that, more than you're legally obligated to pay? What does that mean?
When you file bankruptcy, if there is any debts that are outstanding, that the town had the obligation, and obviously they didn't do their due diligence back then. One of the reasons why this went on for so long. They're not obligated legally to be able to ever recover those funds. So legally,
The bankruptcy agreement,
because they would had to have.
they had dropped the ball.
Mhm.
You
Absolutely.
guys were all part, not you, but you.
But we didn't. I did not know that the town even knew that. No one. I mean, this was back in 2015 of that. No one, I don't think, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I'm going to try. But actually, we weren't even aware of that the town ever did that until this spring.
Right.
That the town didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Correct.
You
We
weren't
didn't,
aware of that.
no idea.
And I'm sorry, so the way you're gonna prevent that from happening in the future is you're gonna do monthly reconciliations of the healthcare premium accounts?
Well, I'm not sure about that. Those were just, I think those were recommendations from the auditor, and I think, I'm not going to speak for Angus, maybe he can speak on this, but he's working on a new,
The town manager?
The finance department is now doing reconciliations on a monthly basis.
Okay.
But there was also. the-
good job, Rick.
the-
So,
Good, okay.
we
There
didn't-
was also the additional error of not picking up of over withholding from.
there was a ton of different errors.
It was on the same, it was on the same line item.
And frequently, it was almost the same amount
Yeah.
that were underpaid and overpaid, so nobody caught it.
And in your case, since you're willing to talk about it, let me just ask you, what happened was, if I could just put it plainly, it sounds like you had some financial difficulty.
Correct.
And you were not able to continue to pay that obligation that you had to the town for your insurance premium. That went by the wayside.
Yep.
And that money was never paid until you made it whole,
Correct.
whatever that date was.
But-
And I was
but
told-
Glenn's point was that he paid the pre-bankruptcy amount as well as.
I hear that.
So
I hear that.
what he's saying is that part was over and above. what-
If I didn't pay that,
He didn't need to.
I never had to pay that. I'm not legally obligated
So
to do.
the town was not harmed in that way, is what
No.
you're saying? You paid
No.
up what you owed.
No, not harmed in that way at all. But during the process, I was being told by finance directors, don't worry about it, Glenn, pay it when you can.
Not, Finance directors?
Finance directors, especially the time when, and I have to give credit to Archie. Archie came up to me and said, "Hey, Glenn, you need to take care of this." And I said, "Okay." He goes, "You need to go see the finance director." I went and saw the finance director, made a $2,000 payment, and he's the one who said, and I said, "So what do you want to do? We need to get this done." He goes, "Glenn, pay it when you can."
Who was that?
It was, what's his name?
Mike.
No, it was
Andy?
Andy.
Okay. That's, yeah.
So,
And,
is it fair
and,
to say that when you felt that it was not that you weren't gonna have to pay it, but that they
Exactly.
they weren't, it was.
when you're in a
encouraged-
situation, Jen, when you're in a situation like mine, when somebody says, "Don't worry about it," what do you do?
Well, you tell me what you do.
You don't worry about it and you pay your other bills. But it was never my intention that I would never, ever pay it. It was wrong. I should never have done that. I should have realized that. Of course I should have. But when I think when Archie was talking about, it was a total, what would be a good way, a total lapse in the whole system. And me being the primary one, but a total lapse in the whole system.
And a lot of people's fault.
And a lot of people's, but me being the primary one, I'm not running away from it. But a lot of people dropped the ball. Would that be?
That's fair, yeah.
So.
And never my intention that this would never be paid back. And soon as it, and so, just so you know, through the whole line, every single body knew, and it wasn't brought to my attention. Even Angus knew about this months before it was brought to my attention. So it was not on the forefront of everybody. So if that's being portrayed to me, you know what I mean? And my responsibility totally, that I should have taken care of it. I got it, and I did, and it became a serious situation, which I didn't think it was, but as soon as I realized it was a serious situation, I took care of it. I guess ignorance isn't a defense, but I was ignorant on how serious it was. I'm sorry. As soon as I became aware how serious it was, I think first by Joe Anderson, because he had a outside meeting with the auditor at some place in Boston, at a convention or something like that, and he brought it to my attention, and then I think we brought it to everybody's attention, and then there was a process that needed to be in place, I think, and I think the town did the right thing, and eventually so did I.
So Joe Anderson coincidentally met with the auditor at a different meeting and it came up, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And then you heard about it
I
from
think it
him?
was at the MMA.
Yeah, it was a convention. I didn't know which, some type of
I just
convention.
want to be clear, it's not that he went privately to meet with the.
No. I said he met him it was at a convention or something like that.
So, and you said everybody knew about it except for you? What does that mean? Everybody knew about it and.
No. I knew about it.
Yeah.
But.
In terms of it being an issue.
Yeah.
You said it, even Angus Jennings knew about it before.
And never brought it to my attention.
Well, why was that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pointing a finger, but.
To me, you're asking me?
I'm asking the chairman, I guess. Because you knew about it and didn't bring it to his attention?
Well, I had in the past.
No, hold on. I said that Archie brought it to my attention. I told you Archie brought it to my attention. He says, "You gotta go fix this with the finance director."
Yes.
And I went upstairs, give him a 2,000 thing to start out a thing to pay it out and see what he did, and that's what happened.
So when you say everybody knew about it before it was brought to your attention, what do you?
No, the seriousness of it.
Oh, the
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, that I should have realized it was seriouser than it really was, but I was ignorant to the fact because I was told, "Hey, Glenn."
I think the auditor, the audit of FY 2018 was, at that point, he was more concerned that it was continuing to languish. So that's
The auditor was.
The auditor was.
And even he thought the auditor, thought the other stuff was written off because the amounts that we owed individuals from not processing payroll properly. So we were taking too much money out of our employees because it was dysfunctional at that point because of the turnover in the finance department. That number was almost the exact number of what was owed. So he thought it was written off, but it wasn't written off. So that's why we sat through an audit, and until this particular audit, he said, hey, this is serious. We need to take care of it. And then the process, as soon as we were notified, the process has been in place to take care of it. And it's been taken care of.
And it's fair to say that you filed for bankruptcy, you clearly have resolved your issues, you were able to pay back what you owed to the town.
Correct. In full. The town is full. Correct, Archie? Whole.
And can I ask the town manager, from your perspective, coming in new to this whole thing, you're feeling like the town is in a place now that this wouldn't happen again?
Yes.
Yeah, you feel more to go on that, or where are we at with that?
I think there's probably one more policy that would be good to get voted, which is to set a period of time with payments lapse, that there'd be kind of an absolute date at which someone would be removed.
Right.
The main time this could come up in is if there's a retiree or a spouse of a retiree where you don't have the withholdings to withdraw from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that it's, I've talked with the treasurer collector, we've talked about probably 60 days grace period, 90 days you're off, but it would be good to get that voted, because that shouldn't be a subjective, in my opinion, that shouldn't be a subjective staff decision, that should be a policy decision,
Right.
so.
So is it fair to report that you have taken a look at this and put some things in place now? Could you give me a summary, a list, or something of like, here's what I did when I found this out? Is that even a thing that you could do, or?
Well, I think it'd be fair to say he'd give you 5 pages of things, of mishaps in the finance director's office that he's been putting out fires since he's been here. Just not this one.
And you're
Is
saying
that correct to
because
say?
of the amount of turnover?
The amount of turnover, there are a lot of
Tracy
things.
Blaze left? Is that what it is?
Well, that's not what I can't speak to,
Why?
specific personnel
Yeah.
or when things changed.
Right.
All I can tell you is that for
What
I
you
think
saw.
some number of years,
And
Yeah,
performance
that's-
on past performance, you
Yeah.
wasn't here.
Sure, but that's what you're saying.
Well, I think Angus is saying,
Somebody's saying.
I think Angus is saying when he came in here, there was a lot of things that a lot of problems that I think we've had conversation with him, because when we sat here during the interview process, we said, hey Angus, this is a wonderfully run, financially perfect town, and with no problems, you're just going to be able to step in, and he has told us absolutely not.
Okay, so and I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, because what happened with you is one thing, but also there's a concern, I think, just to be able to let taxpayers know where things stand now.
the internal controls are substantially improved. I think there are a number of things, both with current personnel, with the way that we're working together. It's much better than when I got here. There were some, I think getting everyone back in the same office suite was a big plus. But in terms of tangible things, I think, for instance, right now, our treasurer collector is, for those people who are on health insurance, who are retired or spouses of retirees who there's not the withholdings to draw from, is methodically notifying everybody monthly. That's one thing that, for the period of time that Archie discussed, there were, I think, just maybe 3 notices over a course of a period of several years. It was very sporadic. So we're doing things monthly. I think getting a policy before the board for them to vote to establish a period of time, a grace period, and then a certain point at which someone's, taken off the insurance, I think would be a plus. But I think effectively that's, in the current moment, I can tell you there's nobody that would fall into that. But I think for going forward and for organizational continuity and to avoid a staff member having to make that difficult decision, I think it would be better to have an adopted policy.
And as an outsider who's come into this situation, the things that you're putting in now, are those above and beyond what you would normally do, or is that basically?
No, and I don't want to, it's not that I'm coming in. I mean, the town, before I got here, they had gotten the community compact. They had the Department of Revenue provide a number of financial policies. A half dozen of those were voted by the board last winter. Others are in, continuing, draft form, but those will be brought forward for adoption as they're ready. Each one has different staff that are affected, and so, one thing that I've been clear about with those policies is if you're adopting a policy that has implications for specific staff, even if it's something they're already doing, but all of a sudden in the policy it's by date certain, it's got to be done, that kind of thing, I want to make sure that the affected people are aware of that, and it's not just adopted and then their job's different, they were not informed of that, so just process-wise, that's made it take a little. But the takeaway point is that the board had already set in motion financial policies and tightening up policies long before I got here.
And I hear that, but I guess I'm also hearing that things were kind of a mess. And that is not the message, if I could just finish, that is not the message that taxpayers in West Newbury thought.
Let me clear, my observation is at a macro level, I think things have gone very well financially in this town. At a micro level, there's some things that I think, were done incorrectly. I mean, one example is there were, something to do with the mooring fees and the boat excise that weren't receipted to the correct account. It's a fairly small amount of money. It's something that was picked up, but those kinds of little things, or the lack of kind of standardized procedure of how things were done, there were some breakdowns. There were a number of things where the first several months I was here, it was almost, there were a lot of little things. It's not like there was all these big things. It was a lot of little things that add up,
and you feel like you've gotten a handle.
We've made a lot of progress. Yeah, we're continuing to, obviously we just put in place a new chart of accounts and new accounting software. The accounting software was
it's night and day than what it was.
So there's a lot of things that we've been doing on an ongoing basis and we'll continue to do. But I think in general, the financial controls are very tight. There's been, nothing in the, there's not been any, we have tight financial controls. All the expenses, all the budget that people vote, they can have a great deal of confidence that the money's going exactly to where it's supposed to. In fact, during the prior audit season, or the prior budget season, I provided to the Finance Committee for the first time a complete breakdown of every transaction in every expense line of the budget going back 2 years. And I said, if you guys see anything that doesn't look right, let me know. So, I think we're doing things very transparently, and everyone's working together and pulling in the same direction. So, I wouldn't want to overstate. There were a lot of little things, and definitely with the office and the finance department being across the hall from where I was, I could tell pretty quickly I can't be the finance director, which is part of my responsibility, with them being across the hall and with the sole admin staff being in my office. So it was kind of like we were, the day-to-day paperwork was stacking up in the first 6 months. When we made that move, that made a big difference.
Jim, I think personally, I think the taxpayers should be at ease since Angus started, because he has had the stability, the smart, the fortitude in areas to make sure it's being done well. If I'm not mistaken, before Angus, we bounced checks to the school district because our things weren't, what was it? They weren't reconciled properly. We weren't, what was it, Archie?
Well,
if we're going to tell the truth, we got to tell the truth about everything, my friends. How messed up it was before Angus started. So if we're going to, because it's all about financial controls, it's all about what was said to me. And when things weren't being done properly in the finance department, when we're bouncing checks to the school district, I think it shows that the money's there, but things weren't being done properly. But that is not the case any longer because of Angus is here, and his leadership has has, well, I mean, when we told you everything is in place, I mean, Angus has caught just even the little things on people's pay stubs, the vacation days that you have on your pay stubs is inaccurate. It's telling you that you're getting more than you're really getting. So those are the type of things when Angus says the micro things of running the town, were not where he thought they were, what we told him in the interview. But the macro vision of the big money and how it's spent and how it's invested and all that kind of stuff is.
Is it fair to say that's why not this iteration of the board, but the previous iteration of the board, which had two former finance committee members on it, you weren't having red flags raised if this was going on? Is that fair? Because it was a macro, you looked at it and said, it seems like things are going okay. The finance directors are reporting that things are okay.
Well, some of
I mean,
these things.
how does that happen, Dave?
Like, Jen, they're relatively.
They're not caught in an audit would be probably a good way of saying it too.
Wasn't finding them. These are not like, there's like, they're relatively small findings. I don't think, you could, it's hard to describe, but
The big picture, you couldn't find it until you got somebody in there that was competent like Angus, that was making sure everything was being done right. Down to the little, I mean, if you're going to do it, the big $1 billion thing has to be just as correct as somebody's pay stub and how many vacation days are on there. Or we're taking too much money out of our employees because nobody bothered when we voted to go from,
for example, why did that happen? Few employees, when the town voted to increase the town's contribution to the workers from 60% to 65% of the town's contributions to their health insurance, on a few people, for some reason, who knows what, they stayed at 60 instead of 65.
so we were taking too much money out of their pay,
and that just didn't get, like, it'd be
They
very.
didn't know.
they didn't notice,
Ask for it.
because it was only 5%. It was only 5% of their pay over 2 weeks, you know what I mean? But then it added up to a good amount of money because it was a bunch of people.
Yeah, or another example that the board would never know, and it's not in isolation that big a deal, but all the contracts, by state law, the town accountant needs to have all the contracts in her file, because that's part of what is the backup to approve invoices. And, when I got here, the town accountant had been working toward that, but when she started a year prior, that was not the case. And so, that took surprising, that took a couple of months to get everybody, not just for their existing contracts they have on file, to get them to the town accountant's office, but going forward, to get them filed properly.
We're a very small town with limited numbers of employees, so people aren't necessarily specialists. They have to wear a lot of different hats, and that, I'm not making excuses, but that does.
Yeah, because that's the case of, with respect, that's a lot of towns
Right.
around here.
But it's also a very decentralized, one thing that surprised me, it's kind of a decentralized, the financial side of things. You have, committees or commissions or boards kind of, they've got their piece of the budget. And so when I got here, I'm like, okay, I'm the CFO, I'm accountable for every penny. And so, it was just.
That has to change.
I'm not, that's not gonna be up to the town, but that's what you get with a decentralized form of government, is you don't get standardization. Not everyone's doing things the exact same way. Now, Mike's done a lot of good work as chief procurement officer to make sure that people understand the purchasing rules. Lori and I do a lot of work to make sure on invoicing and on, insurance and W-9s and all that stuff gets done. And I think at this point I can tell you it's getting done. But, when you have a lot of different entities kind of effectively managing their own business relationships, you're not going to get standardization. So I think, it's not, it's nothing catastrophic, it's just a lot of little stuff.
But I think I should say something. See, this was also in the audit report, and this was related to bank reconciliations, which there had been some issue with in previous audits, and the auditor, in the same thing that I quoted from previously, the issues associated with the cash banks that were reported in the prior year management letter have been resolved. So, I mean, things do get corrected.
Not do get corrected, they have been corrected because of Angus. To speak about, what were you just talking about?
Contracts?
Well, I was talking about, yeah, contracts, decentralization, Angus is right. The finance director was supposed to be in the account, they didn't even have all the contracts. Angus has come along, and we've had other contracts with other people here that we didn't even have contracts with, weren't even signed. Correct?
That's right, yeah.
So, you know what I mean?
Was it
So,
a handshake? How did that work?
you tell me how it works, but Angus, thank goodness to Angus that he's figured stuff up.
Like what, for example, did you not have a contract for?
Trash removal, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we gotta talk, and there's many more, Jen, so this might be a bigger story than just Glenn Kemper. It needs to be, because Glenn Kemper was part of this story, of the dysfunctionality of the micromanaging of the finances around here. And thank goodness that we have Angus.
Can I ask the newest member of the board, you're awfully silent, do you have a comment about all this? How you see things coming on the board with fresh eyes?
It's, I guess, an hour. But I think it's really good that it's seen a little daylight right now. And I don't, clearly there have been some things that haven't been right. And I'm just hoping that we're bringing them all out.
And not to put words in your mouth, but Angus, you feel like you have gone substantially in that direction.
No question about it.
Absolutely.
No question about it, and the board's been nothing but supportive on those efforts.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say more, Jen, because I'm not gonna second guess what was done,
Before you go to the
before.
Yeah. And I can get that statement that you read from.
Oh, absolutely.
And I can't make a comment until I get that, because I'd like to go through it.
And we'll
What are we doing next?
find time to talk with Luke.
Yes, ma'am. One thing I have to say to Rick, Rick has been candid with me, and he's been excellent about this. One thing he did say to me in private, that, Glenn, I wish you took care of it, and well, you know what? I'm not gonna speak for him. Could you take that off the record? I was just trying, thanks. I was just gonna try to.
He said what he wanted to say.
Yeah, I was gonna give him a kudos, but, yeah,
You
Yeah.
don't need any kudos.
no, he got his own.
Okay, all right.
You kudos?
Terrible case of cooties.
Yeah,
The farmer said there was a kid.
kinda similar. That or tequila. So you thought you were gonna have a slow week, Jen?
I thought I was gonna write about the car post, so there you go, huh?
Hopefully you do.
Story.
So well, eventually, I will definitely write about it eventually. There's no, and forgive my ignorance, there's no legal ramifications for you. for this.
None. Correct? Angus?
None
The
that
town would have to take action against you, is that how it would have to work?
Yeah, I guess. There's no,
Everything's been,
I guess we asked the town council,
everything's been repaid.
everything's repaid,
and more.
and more. Town council, is that your understanding of how the law works? It's the town that was supposedly harmed initially, right? So they would have to take action if they wanted to, is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a town.
But it needs to be front and center, that my obligations, I've paid even more than I was obligated to pay.
and in doing that, you paid what you owed the town.
Correct.
I mean, that's fair to say.
Yep. The town is whole.
Right. And what was the date of that you did that? Roughly?
I can, we can, yeah, I can, yeah. Honestly, I don't know the date, but I can get that for you. For you to be able to publish it, I probably would want the correct date, not a guess. But I can get that for you. You have that, right, Angus?
Yep.
You have that date?
Yeah, I believe it was the April 5th.
I think it was a Friday.
Yeah, April 5th.
I know it was a Friday.
And is it, because what it sounds like to me is you're saying is it was a lot of sloppy stuff. Is that fair?
Say that again?
It's a lot of sloppy stuff in terms of the town's financial micro stuff. There was a lot of things that just didn't, the T's didn't get crossed. Is that right?
That you found when you came here? Is that what the question is?
Or how would
That's,
you put it? Don't
yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
you know, you're.
Categorize it, you don't like it. That's okay. How would you put it?
Well, I would say I would say what I've said to the board, you know, since the beginning, which is the finance director position for more than 30 years before I got here was a full-time job. And there is a lot of work every day to manage the financial operations of the town. So, you know, when my position was created, but they removed a full-time position, created a full-time position with all of those responsibilities. That's part of why you hear me say at these meetings, don't forget, I have a day job. It's not just this stuff.
Right.
The day-to-day financial operation. So it's, you know, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of attention, and it's no surprise to anyone that for a period of time prior to I got here, there was a lack of stability. There was a lot of turnover among finance directors, town accountants, and
And
so.
that's gonna have an impact. Is what you're
That's gonna have an impact, and so we had some.
That's a good point too about the town accountant. We've only talked about the turnovers in the finance directors, but
Yeah.
we've had turnovers in the town accountant. And, you know, the form of government we have and what the town accountant's responsible for, it's a big
job.
It's
yeah.
a big job.
And in both of those positions, you had, you know, interim people for periods of time, and it just doesn't lend itself well to
Sound fun.
organizational continuity, and so a lot of institutional memory was lost.
But I'm still like a little bit stunned about the contract stuff. Like, how do you not have a contract for trash?
Well, yeah, you know, it was a 6-year contract. We were the 5th year. We had a copy with the town signature. The vendor, I believe, had a copy with the vendor signature. There just wasn't an executed copy, you know. So it's a paperwork thing, but that's part of the finance department's job, is to make sure those paperwork things get done.
I think that's the micro, you know what I mean? So I think that's like, so think about coming in and dealing, thank you. Think about coming in and dealing with a bunch of those micro things. Now that becomes a lot of work and now that becomes all encompassing, because then everything you touch isn't done right. So you have to fix that rather than just saying, okay, check off that and it goes. So all the micro stuff, you know what I mean, turns into all-encompassing because it has to be done right.
So you're saying it's kind of a miracle that he's still here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a miracle,
No,
but
that's what you, I mean, you hired someone to do the job,
and he's doing it the right way. So that's,
job,
and we realized, I think it's important to say that we realized this, the previous board realized this, and that's why we funded, that's why we took the money out of a selectman's assistant and going to have a lesser role there and put that money into the finance department, because we see the work that really needs to be done.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, this position that we'll be hiring later this year is going to bring a lot, you know, it's going to have a substantial role on the finance side, because we're
What do you call that position?
we still have a working title.
Okay.
So, but it's essentially finance
That's-
assistant / clerk of committees.
It's true.
Because it'll include coordination among committees and the public, you know, public messaging and
And you
all of that.
expect that
I
to
asked
be
him
in
again
place
tonight.
by when?
We're still looking to advertise it, but this fall. It's,
But the goal is for that position to be part of what makes the town manager position without as independent or a separate individual as finance director possible. By having someone who's providing adequate support.
Yeah, and a lot of it's actually support of the town accountant, so the town accountant can take on more to support me. So it's kind of a waterfall effect, which is part of the complexity of it.
Okay, thank you.
Jen, when do you want me to get back to you on this kind of stuff?
Maybe we can talk tomorrow?
I'd like to dissect it if I could. When do you want to run it?
I can't wait too long on this one. I have to-
Oh, of course.
So sometime tomorrow, later, a little later. You could look
Yeah,
at
it would be later if, say it again?
You could look at it tomorrow and get back to me later in the day.
Yeah, later the best, because I have just a packed Tuesday.
Ask you.
Packed morning Tuesday.
Okay. People are gonna see it on cable anyway.
Yeah, it is what it is. Anybody have any questions? 978-239-7544. Be glad to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Item J, we're gonna pass over that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that, Archie? You're gonna what?
On the goal setting, just to provide an update, I don't have a letter for the board's review, but Glenn, the point that you made last week is well taken. I want to get something in front of everyone ASAP because, we want to make sure before we have something scheduled that we give the various boards, commissions, and committees time to develop their own goals and come into a meeting, to be able to speak with the committee's voice. So that's. But yeah, we had some unexpected things come up. So it's tough when there's meetings one week after the other. Monday night, it's very easy to say, yeah, do this week, and then Tuesday through Sunday is kind of dealing with.
Well, you only had a week in between. You didn't have two.
Exactly. So I don't have
How
it.
did that happen?
It happened because of the July 8th bicentennial event.
Yeah.
You got a week off of that.
That's right.
Yeah, we can quit a week off.
No, it was decidedly not a week off.
Yeah.
It was actually 15 days in a row, I think it worked.
Hey, Jen, if you have any questions about that, get them to me as early so I could be able to respond to them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So our annual meeting, annual town meeting bylaws that were passed have been approved by the Attorney General. Do we need to give the details of that?
No, the
No.
only thing I just really want to point out more for the board's information, although I think you know this, so with the AG's approval, that makes them legally effective. And what that means is henceforward, you are no longer the permit granting authority for street opening and trench excavation permits, except trenches above a certain threshold. So,
Thank you. Thank you
so
for that.
that's-
So should I send a little email to the Attorney General?
Yeah, you still get control of big trenches, but the street opening, that's no longer going to bog down your agendas.
Thank you.
And Wayne,
Things we could vote on.
we have the Permit Link software through the inspectional services, and we're actually hoping to put the street opening into the online permitting. It would be an option, not required, but that would give, streamline things a bit. So Wayne has got the reins on that one. Item L is just a brief update on some of the finance things with the end of the fiscal year, beginning of a new one, updating the insurance schedules. We've got to provide quite a bit of information to the Pentucket finance people for the borrowing for the school. We're working with the OPEB vendor. This is the new vendor. You may remember earlier this year we announced we were going in a different direction with the OPEB vendor, and so we're looking to get them all of the data they need this week in order for them to move forward timely with that. So there's some other things too, but.
How did it go with the auditor?
Good. The auditor was here all day, Wednesday and Thursday. Their initial visit is just kind of, they pull different files and kind of spot check things, so it wasn't that in-depth meetings that will happen later, into the early to mid-fall. But it was a couple of weeks earlier than it was last year for this initial visit, so I think timing-wise, we want to, get that done earlier in the year than it did this year. So I think we're off to a good start there. And, I talked to the staff and, the audit staff, and he didn't have any questions. He was able to find everything he needed, so it seemed to go well. Next item is a review of draft town meeting schedule. So that's item M in front of you. Now, you'll note I did, on the issue of kind of kicking off the FY21 budget process, I did punt on that one, just saying to be decided. I would like to see that put on one, if not both, of the August agendas, because as you'll remember, especially Archie and Glenn, having been through the FY20 process, toward the end of that, I did write a memo basically recommending that I think we need to start the FY21 budget process significantly sooner. But before putting pen to paper on that, I'd like to write that up in a little more detail. So that's where I used last year's template, and that went through the kind of budget and capital priority process for the subsequent year budget.
So Angus, what about related to our potential meeting of the, you're gonna do like the all town?
See, this is where.
We wanna like do that
Before the budget stuff.
before.
I think that'd be great to kind of formally weave that in, although I do want to say, I think part of where at least some of my confusion coming in last year was it seemed like there was kind of policy goals and budgetary goals are two, sometimes they overlap.
Sometimes they're the same.
Yeah, with capital planning and things like that, but there's a heck of a lot of policy goals that don't really have a budgetary impact. They compete for the same time resource, but they don't have a budgetary impact. So I think that if we're inviting people's kind of objectives budgetarily, we should specify that. Because last year I feel like they were a bit conflated. Or actually, I mean, I should say, I don't know that we ever got budgetary goals until we got people's actual budgets. So we didn't try to flush that out.
Well, that was the problem with the personnel stuff. We didn't really get the people's
Right.
budgetary goals until we got the budgets, and they were looking for new personnel, and we didn't really have the time to
Right.
research it on our own and
And
deliberate.
that's the
That was
main
way too
reason.
late
Right,
last year.
Right, and that's part of why I think we need to start a lot sooner this year. Potentially like
Okay, so
a lot sooner.
maybe your point is, okay, maybe they sort of are independent.
I think if departments or boards, commissions have known either things that they know are coming down the pike budgetarily for FY21 or beyond, or that they would like to see, whether that's staffing, equipment, otherwise, I think we ought to specifically, try to get that early, rather than not learning about it till we actually get the budget submitted. But with that said, there's a lot of non-budgetary goals that the different commissions and committees are pursuing. And that's, I think, more what I had envisioned for this kind of chairman's meeting idea, is more of like a policy-wise, really where are we trying to go? What are our high priorities? Not so much a budget focus on that one.
So, anyone have any comment on the proposed schedule? It seems fine to me.
Seems good. As long as it works with you and the department heads and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't, I mean.
What I'll do, why don't I circulate this around to the department heads and then come back on the 5th and August 5th and look for you to vote something that
Let me
night.
ask you this, has anyone come to you say, we forgot about this, but we absolutely need such and such, have you heard any things that people, you know, big things?
Are gonna want articles for, I
people are
think he's saying.
planning an article on?
We are aware that the landfill monitoring costs are trending over what the Board of Health had anticipated based on some more recent requirements from DEP. So they did meet with the FinCom back in June and said that it's very possible, if not probable, that they'd be seeking an article in the fall town meeting or a reserve fund transfer, one or the other.
This gonna be an ongoing cost in their budget? Because I'd hate
You
to,
know, it's so tough because it depends what they find. You know, if they do the testing and there's, you know. that can
nothing,
trigger
then there
the-
isn't anymore, but if there is, then it would have to be an ongoing thing.
Exactly. So,
I would actually, it just seems that we always mess up on that for some strange reason. Maybe it's a moving scale with the DEP or something, I'm not sure, but
Well, things get more stringent year by year, that's the other thing. They move the decimal point.
but I would ask them to have that in their budget going forward.
I totally agree with that. And I have, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hold on for one, I just want to, I'm sorry, about the fall town meeting. Something that we're trending in a good way, because even Casey brought this up to us, that our fall town meeting years ago, a couple years ago, started looking like a spring town meeting. So this is just more of a cleanup and stuff. This isn't a wholesale, let's everybody get their articles going.
That's always been my understanding, and I'm just looking at my notes from the October town meeting. I have very little on there.
You understand? So
Yeah.
I don't want to like circulate, hey, what do you guys want to put on, rather than,
Right.
No.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
The idea was that it had to be a genuine, unforeseen thing. It wasn't like, we'll do it in the fall because less people are there. It'll be easier.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
yeah.
Yeah, at this point, you know, it's pretty early, and so obviously this list will change, but at this point, all I have is, you know, likely CPC proposal for car post. There's the funding for that pictometry flyover we talked about a couple of weeks ago. That's, but again, that should
What?
be,
I hate that.
and,
Actually, I always vote against it.
so, yeah, not much so far.
It doesn't change in 3 years, but
That's true. How much does, yeah.
like someone put a porch on.
All you need is Google now, don't you?
Google Earth.
I didn't realize how, with my Verizon, my wife was wondering where I was, and I didn't answer or something, and she thought something happened. Go into my Verizon, can locate your phone, and then do the satellite thing, and she could see me outside talking to two guys up in Maine.
What? Really?
Yep.
You gotta check the settings on your phone. If you don't, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I go, I thought you were in technology. She goes, I don't know, it's the easiest thing in the world. That was this weekend.
Okay, Personnel Committee,
So last fall, the Personnel Committee began meeting again for the first time in a while. They've met, I think, just 3 times, might have been 4. There was one
No, we took the
or
Selectmen
two
off.
that were canceled because of weather. But basically, you know, under the bylaw, they are advisory to this board. Now, eventually, with the change in form of government, under the legislation, I do have broad responsibility for personnel administration, so that might be a housekeeping thing to look at some point, but until then, that committee is advisory to the Board of Selectmen. So I just wanted to, since it'd been a while since you'd had an update on this, lay out for you some of the issues that they have talked about at meetings up to this point. And a lot of these have come out of questions that either I've had myself or that people, you know, staff have come to me with at different times, and I haven't been able to give them a clear answer because as I look into it, there's inconsistencies between, you know, policy or job descriptions or selectmen policy versus another board's policy. So there's a lot of housekeeping to bring that all into alignment. So this kind of sketches out some of those issues in pretty broad strokes. So happy to elaborate on any of these, but that's,
Is this something that instead of us reinventing the wheel, also we could do some serious cutting and pasting from other towns?
yeah.
Because, I mean, to start really doing, you know, the grades and all of this is a lot of work. And if someone could have done some of this work in another town, it seems like we could maybe use that.
It doesn't change much, I wouldn't think, you're right. We've done it with other stuff.
Just a thought.
So they meet again a week from Thursday.
Notification from the open space. Did you want us to comment on any of that stuff?
Well,
or-
I think if you.
I wasn't, okay, I didn't know if you were.
Just to kind of validate that these are all legitimate questions to look into, and, or they're not questions per se, they're topics where some clarification would be needed.
I would say, yeah.
Yes, but we're talking a lot of work here. So
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Providing, you know, personnel manuals and for safe work spaces for each, we do a lot of different things. This is for, it's a lot of work, that's all.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, as you know, the OSHA went into effect in February, and that has different standards for DPW and water versus town hall and library, senior center. All of those have different standards, and that's.
And you have to have manuals per OSHA
no,
on
the
every
one-
single one?
No, the one that you need the documentation on is the hazard communication protocol and any of the cleaning products or things like that. You're supposed to have a binder for each distinct workplace, but a lot of it is training and then documenting that people got the training. But
And then you know where the MSDS
yes,
folder is. You have to know where the folder is.
that's right. Yeah. That you are correct.
Are you deal with that?
Oh, every second. And now you have to know it in, there's US standards, and now there's European Union standards, which have now been applied to the US, so you have to have,
Oh, seriously?
like for
Wow.
chemicals.
Yeah, it used to be MSDS sheets, and then they changed them to SDS sheets because that incorporated the universal.
The world.
Yeah, so after everybody had been
But
spending
you can't
years
throw out
doing
the
a certain
old
thing.
ones. You have to keep the
Yeah.
US version ones for the next 50 years, even though they're no longer valid.
Sounds good.
So one good thing about the personnel policy as written is it does provide for, advance notice to personnel before any changes. So if, people can rest assured that before there's any potential changes brought forward, that would be advertised for
Don't they have to
staff.
repost in the work area and all that kind of
That's
stuff?
exactly right, yeah.
Yeah.
Changes as in job description, job responsibilities?
No, to personnel policies. Personnel policies.
Like you can't stand on one foot on Tuesdays or something, you know what I mean? Something or whatever, or what, like,
With the personnel policy.
yeah, like
so
you can't, like what?
Benefits, grievance procedure.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
hiring. I mean, and there's certain things that the personnel policies are silent on, like job descriptions. And, I've recommended that there ought to be a process to set out how job descriptions are amended, because it varies depending on who's the appointing authority. So for instance, positions that are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, the board has voted changes in job descriptions in open session. For positions under my appointing authority, I've made changes and announced them at a public meeting, but the board doesn't vote those. There's also positions that are appointed by different boards or commissions, and it's not really clear. There isn't a policy. So I think getting to where, as an organization, there's a certain way we do things when it comes to personnel. Even if in fact it's done similarly, it's not, it's not documented. And in fact, there are discrepancies we know of. I mean, that ought to be consistent across the organization, so. So unless there's anything else on that, item O is just a notification, the state approval of the open space and recreation plan.
I'd like to just, I said it before, when they submitted it, I'd like to thank them for it. There's a lot of work involved in what they did, and I'd like to thank them.
Agreed. Yeah.
Ditto.
It's a pretty good piece of work. I haven't read through the whole thing yet, but what I've looked at is, I had to take a ton of time.
And item,
And they didn't just use the last one. And
They didn't copy and paste.
No, they really.
And they talked to people.
We worked it, yeah.
Yep, and they came back multiple times with us.
item P, you can see some of the recent correspondence there. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant has been awarded, and you want to ask the question that we talked about? So questions arisen so there's a working group that thankfully is really running with this and is kind of carrying the ball.
And that's what that's what the Board of Selectmen wanted with regard to grants, to say, wait a minute, we didn't want it to all fall on staff time.
Yep.
People wanted grants to put together a plan,
Mhm.
and the individuals who were involved in the municipal vulnerability grant have done exactly that. They've had a good program, they gave you a whole good outline on it.
Mhm.
The question now has arisen is, are they a committee? Should they be considered a committee subject to open meeting law or not? They haven't been appointed by anybody.
So wouldn't we then say, give us your opinion on that? Are you asking us? And then I think we would turn around and say,
You want to have that status and as it for basically transparency's sake. They put a little bit of extra bonus, onus on them in the sense that they'd have to, obviously.
have minutes and stuff?
Minutes and stuff. Right now, they're simply, they have really no standing other than their volunteers helping out, to do this.
To fulfill a grant?
Yeah.
Would that, excuse me, would that limit them at all in any way, to trying to fulfill that? Because I knew they wanted to go and talk to employees and stuff, so now they have to post something 48 hours in advance.
Like if three of them go together, or, is that gonna make it complicated?
What do you guys want? I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. I
I mean, I think it kind of comes down to where the lines of authority are. So for instance, it's been our understanding, Mike and my understanding, and I think everyone's, that the contract, the award of a contract to a vendor, that's one of the first big decisions that will need to be made with this grant. So if this working group is recommending a vendor selection to Mike as Chief Procurement Officer, obviously he's going to need documentation, unless he's going to be going through that whole process with them and sitting in on all the meetings and all of that, he's going to need documentation of the procurement process and the recommendation to support his files. Similarly, there's the quarterly reports that are required under the program. The understanding is the working group's going to prepare all of those, but they still go in under my signature, so I'm going to want to have some backup in my file.
But why can't we tell them though? Why can't we tell them that you need that ahead of time rather than, maybe, we're just assuming that they become a committee and then they have the minutes that they're going to do all those things. What if those aren't minutes and whatever aren't complete enough for your files or Mike's files? We'd still have to, are you saying that just because we make them a committee and make them subject to open meeting law and stuff, all those things are going to happen?
No, I think it would basically, formalize the process a little bit right now. I don't know. I mean,
Are we going to scare anybody away if we do it that way?
So
That would be my.
That's my question,
although think we ever officially appointed this. I'm a member of that
Right.
group.
Right.
I almost said committee. I'm a member of that group. And we are meeting this Wednesday, as Mike knows, we are meeting this Wednesday night. And, you know, we should probably talk about that as a group to get a group perspective.
Okay, well, I'll go
Obviously,
to
it's
that,
within
I'll
the
go to
purview
that
of the Board of
meeting
Selectmen to.
and make it clear as to like the lines of what we need to get done and, you know, whether it
Or,
falls in.
or if it's not gonna make anybody scared that they're a committee, then I guess maybe the formal
Yeah, we
process
got-
is the best.
You know, most of the people, in the working group are either on another committee or are, members of, well, you know, in the case of, say, Paul Savigny, you know, he's, you know, health agent. So, you know, people are either on other boards and or committees, or they are, actually employees of the town.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question, I think, of just trying to, you know, find the, you know, what the lines of demarcation is, because it's in some ways a hybrid, because it's like an advisory group, which technically is not been appointed by, you know, any other board, and
What about the finance advisory board?
that's appointed by you,
I know.
so it becomes subject to the open meeting law.
Well, I understand that. I thought you said, or
It
just
is-
advisory.
It is, you know, the idea is that the chief procurement officer, the independent authority to sign on for procurement, I don't, I mean, they could give me a recommendation of the person, and theoretically, I could say, nah, thank you for your work, but I think this person should be.
But see, I didn't,
Yeah,
well, hold on.
So this group formed really organically
Mhm.
by reaching out to people who were believed to have reason to have interest in the mission of the group. But in the end, they're all, you know, every one of those people is a member of some other board or committee or employee. So, yeah, I'm not advocating for
But that still
whether or not-
doesn't answer the question of whether, you know, like in Mike's situation.
See, I might be wrong, but when they came ahead of us, they said they were gonna kinda do all the work, then come back to us. See, I didn't think of them working independently, then not getting us involved in anything. Like, they would come back to us and say, hey, this is the vendor.
No,
So you,
The goal was to not use staff time.
no, but I'm saying come back to us as in the selectmen. So you're saying that, hey, they're gonna fulfill the grant, and then whatever comes are gonna go to you, and it gets signed off on as the chief procurement officer, and quarterly reports will be signed off by Angus? They're just gonna give it to him?
Well, I mean, the idea would be,
Okay, I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't that, I don't think that they was gonna be involved in this board at all.
But if you think if it's your recommendation that you would like them having a committee, so it'd be more documentation or more, whatever the word is, then fine.
I think part of where I'm coming from, if it
Calm
looks
down.
like a duck and it quacks like a duck, and I feel like if, you know, if the goal is obviously to have public involvement, and I would think the meetings would be on the town calendar, on the town website, I would think agendas would be posted, because the goal is to have public involvement. So, you know, even if, let's say, for discussion's sake, agendas weren't posted, I think they'd still be on the town website. And so I think if a resident came into my office and said, where are the minutes? And I said, oh, there's no minutes. I think that would be difficult for me to justify that position, because it's,
Quacks like a duck is a duck thing.
Yeah,
I like that
it's-
analogy, because you're right. I mean, you're right.
you
When
know,
you put it
and
that way,
it's
you're right.
dealing with issues of public interest. And if it's not, then what's the point in the first place? These
at
issues
the
are
end-
inherently of public interest. If they're
At the
not,
end, it's gonna cost us money.
well, it's
potentially.
costing the state money, and this working group is going to be the primary facilitator of the process that will recommend how to structure these workshops, when to hold them, longer-term policy recommendations. I'm quite sure the working group will come forward with those. So I think as those come forward and people say, well, where, you know, what was the process? I think if we don't have, you know, I think there's some exposure there if we don't
So
comply.
Angus, you know, to, you know, kind of to be frank.
Yeah.
You know, so we were stepping very lightly, trying to make this happen.
Yep.
And there was reluctance to commit anything in terms of town resources, you know, direct town resources, to, you know, to the MVP program. And, you know, I don't think there's gonna be, you know, resistance to, you know, officially becoming a committee. But the reason why, you know, there was never a push to form a committee was because we were trying to stay as low profile as possible to not eat into resources that you thought weren't readily available. You know, so, I mean.
My opinion on that has not changed.
Okay.
And I think
But being a committee.
resources are incredibly strapped, and I don't think you would disagree with that.
Yeah, but being a committee doesn't have really any.
Okay, we were just trying to keep low profile and, you know,
No,
and I don't think there's gonna be a reluctance or resistance to becoming a committee. It's just that's why, you know,
No,
that's
exactly.
why when,
And the
you know,
committee.
we never came and said, we wanna form a committee.
Well, no, I mean, essentially, the individual stepped up and they, you know, they were told that, listen, we want to minimize staff time, and came up with a very detailed, organized plan of how to do that in order to have this thing. So that's why it was there. So maybe we should just err on the side of caution and you know, and have it as a committee, and that way we don't have a discussion because, you know.
Okay, yeah, I can't imagine there's any objection. I would be shocked if there was, so.
Yeah,
That'll, you know, we're meeting on Wednesday. The only unfortunate thing is that,
You can't talk about anything, because there's no agenda.
Melissa Graver won't be there, because she's traveling, and she's kind of the, you know, she is the core of the.
Yes, she is.
Yeah,
Yes, she is.
But,
we'll move forward.
yeah, okay.
So just, do we wanna like establish this committee then? We just do it now, or rather than later, or
Let's
no?
have the meeting, let's talk.
Yeah, let's put it on our next meeting if we want.
And,
Nothing's gonna happen between now and next meeting, so if we feel like we need, we will. Not, we won't.
And it's too late for a committee to post 48 hours beforehand anyway. So.
You can have a really late meeting. So,
yeah, we'll go to that one.
okay, final item, upcoming.
Meeting assignments and placing things on future agenda.
I'd like to, and I approach this with Angus, I'd like to hear what you gentlemen think about, we let it die down a little bit, but we did want to discuss the complaints we had about the participants in the Memorial Day Parade. So I think we have to, it's gonna be sort of unpleasant, but I think we have to have a little time to talk about that in some meeting in August. If not the next one, then the next one, but maybe we'll get it over with, I don't know.
But we have to make sure we publicize that properly, so everybody, both sides come.
Yeah,
And it's
Angus
just
has-
not, it's just
Angus
not
has
us
the-
guys talking
I know,
about it.
Angus has the names of the people the relevant parties, and I told Angus this before, that, okay, if we do this, we're gonna have like, a half an hour set aside for it, and that's it. Because this is something that people could talk about for 6.5 hours, you could just go on about it. So, strict time limits and, keep the discussion at a high level, but not go on forever.
That's up to you.
But
You gotta keep your meat.
Don't you think that's?
I totally agree with you.
Couple of times, I met with him a couple of times, yeah.
No,
Yep. Yeah, I met
it
with
can
John.
turn bad real quick
Right.
and get off subject matter.
Yeah, in terms of notice, just to clarify what Archie said, it's correct what he said, which is I have a list of people who have contacted my office or who contacted Teresa. That doesn't mean I have everybody, so if there's anyone that anyone thinks of that you want to make sure they get notice, let me know that, and I have who I have. So, and I've kept notes as it went, so.
So I would also say that we would, and see if you guys agree with this, we will listen to people's comments, and then maybe we have to digest them. They're gonna say, well, so what are you gonna do next year? And I think I'm gonna have to think about it.
Oh, my word, yeah, we're not making
I'm
it.
not gonna make a decision the second after everyone's finished talking. I think I'd have to digest all this, kind of philosophical and everything else. What do you think, Rick?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get whatever input we can, and then we'll have to think about how we wanna phrase things. My gut is that we'll probably, want to, in as unspecific way as possible, present, controversial, or presentation of controversial images.
Or provide a code of conduct for the group. Code of conduct.
Okay.
Right, but I just don't think I'm gonna be able to come up with a decision as soon as they finish talking, that's what
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So we'll want to be somewhat limiting, but as little as possible. Just, to avoid what might be perceived or very well could be offensive material. But
Okay,
so you think sometime August?
yeah. Angus, you said you were gonna give us all updates all the time on the bridge.
Yeah, I did hear from Mayor Holliday last week. I had told her previously, and she was aware that Wayne was on vacation this past week. So we've had our eye on setting up a meeting this week. So she was in touch with me toward the end of last week, and I got back to her with my and Wayne's schedules for this week. So we're corresponding on setting up a meeting, and we're also continuing to work on the MassWorks grant. And she reiterated in her correspondence to me last week, reconfirmed her commitment to write a letter of support for that grant. So we're moving forward. And she expressed her shared interest in arriving at an MOU as well.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.